pretty big, but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2021 NFL Draft. We're talking cornerbacks tonight, defensive backs really, but specifically corners. I've still got some work to do on the safety position, so I don't want to really get too deep into that position tonight. However, I have watched quite a few safeties, the ones that I expect to come off the board more likely than not within the first 2 days of the draft. So I've been able to kind of gather my thoughts there, but there are a couple more that I want to take a look at just to see if it'll shuffle up my top 7 or not. But that being said, I've got a good feel for the cornerback position now. I feel really confident about my assessments of these players and how I feel about them. I can't speak for anybody else. So we'll talk about those players, how I feel they fit into the NFL, what are their best fits, and how they should come off the board. Now, what I think and what ultimately happens, probably going to be two different things, but there are some really good football players at the cornerback position in this draft. Corner, wide receiver are two of the more deeper positions in this entire draft class, and it's amazing because these corners are the opposite of the receivers. You know, usually you want these big corners coming into the league to keep up with these big, fast, strong, physical wide receivers. Well, this draft, it's a bunch of small, quick jitterbug receivers, and it's still a bunch of big corners coming in, and not a ton of big wide receivers this year. And last year it was a bunch of big receivers, not a ton of small guys. And so and the corners are just getting bigger and bigger, faster and faster, more skilled. And this group continues that trend. And we'll talk about them tonight. But before we get to any of that, I do have a super chat that I want to take care of. This is from David Graham. Thank you for the super chat, David Graham. Greatly appreciate you, my man. David writes, "Hey, Lou, what up? Just a thought. If reports are true, Ron asked Landon about moving to linebacker. If that's true, then I don't see us taking a linebacker at 19. Your thoughts?" If Ron did approach Landon about moving the linebacker, which he kind of talked about during his presser, whether it was the one on April 1st or the one with Martin Mayhew for the pre-draft presser, I think it was the one when he was by himself on April 1st, where he pretty much said that he really hasn't talked to Landon about that. That was Landon pretty much going off on his own and mentioning the switch to linebacker, and he was adamant about not doing it anyway. So again, when you talk about making switches with players to different positions, that player has to buy in. And if that player doesn't want to do it, then there's no reason to even force the issue, because a guy is only going to be as good as he is comfortable. And if a guy doesn't want to do something, then you're essentially trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Landon Collins views himself as a safety, and he's adamant that he's not switching positions. This is what I've been playing my entire career. This is what I played in college. This is what I've played in the NFL. I've been a Pro Bowler in this league at the safety position. You paid me all this money to play safety. I'm not making a switch to linebacker. I'm not a linebacker. He's adamant about that. If he feels that way, then there's no discussion to be had. The player doesn't want to do it, and if a guy doesn't want to do it, then you can say, hey, either you do this or else, but okay, do it then. In Landon's mind, then cut me. I'll get a job somewhere else. You still got to pay me. It's going to be dead cap. You don't want to go through that headache. It's not really necessary. He's going to play safety. I don't see him making a switch. I really don't. And Ron said, you know, I didn't talk to Landon about that. I think Landon was responding to all of these fans, and I don't know where these fans got this idea from. But, you know, this entire offseason, all fans have been talking about is, hey, Landon should switch to linebacker. They got it from somewhere. They didn't make it up themselves. Someone put that battery in their back. I don't know who it was. It damn sure wasn't me. I don't think it was Chris Cooley. I don't know who it was. I don't think it was Kevin Sheehan. I'm not caught up on the podcast. But somebody put the battery in everyone's back saying Landon should move to linebacker. Maybe it was Chris Cooley. Now that I'm thinking about some of the things he said in the past, maybe it was Chris Cooley that said, you know, Landon Collins would really benefit from a move to linebacker. And I think it was maybe that comment that kind of started it. It spread like wildfire, and now here we are really pressing the issue with Landon Collins. But the man doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to move. That's why when we talk about prospects coming into the league, normally these guys are ready to do whatever, because at the end of the day, they're just trying to get their foot in the door. So if you tell them, hey, I think you're a safety, and they've been playing cornerback their whole career, they'll tell you, okay, fine, I'll play safety. You know, they may not want to play safety, but look, if that's what it takes for me to get into the league, that's what I'm going to do. This guy is on his second contract in the league. He's making a ton of money. He's in a position of power to say, I'm not doing it. So I don't think he's going to do it personally, but that's another discussion for another day. We can talk about that tomorrow night on the Washington football team program. But tonight, we're going to talk about these cornerbacks. So without any further ado, I don't want to hold you up. I'm going to get straight to the proceedings this evening. Let's jump into my top 7 cornerbacks in the 2021 NFL draft. I'm just going to warn you right now, my list probably looks a lot different than yours, and I'm totally fine with that, because again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, especially when it comes to the draft. You might love a guy, he might be the 12th guy on my list. He might be number 1 for you, he might be 12 for me. You know, you might have a guy at number 9 and he might be number 2 on my list. That's how this thing works. You know, we watch the same game with the same player and we see 2 totally different players, 2 totally different things. So without any further ado, let's jump into my rankings, and we start at number 7. Asante Samuel Jr. is my 7th corner in this draft class. This guy is really intriguing for a number of different reasons. Obviously, he's got bloodlines. We'll talk about that. He looks like his dad. He kind of plays like his dad. I think his dad was a little bit more of a ball hawk. He doesn't have that in him yet, but maybe he'll develop that at some point. But I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I turned on the Asante Samuel Jr. film. I thought he was going to be average at best because Florida State stinks, frankly. I kind of put everybody in a box there, and that's not fair to individual players. That the whole university right now, especially the football team, I should say, that program is just on hard times right now. And because you look at it, it's similar to Tennessee. The University of Tennessee, anything that comes out of Tennessee right now to me is damaged goods. When's the last guy that came out of Tennessee that you said, man, he's a beast? I can only think of one, and that's New Orleans Saints running back Alvin Kamara. Outside of Kamara, show me the last Tennessee Volunteer player that came into the league and had an impact. And kind of feel the same way about Florida State. Like, there aren't many Florida State Seminoles these days that come into the league and have an impact. I mean, since Jimbo Fisher left, and honestly, Jimbo must have known what was about to happen to the program, because he took off and bolted for Texas A&M, and this program hasn't been the same since. And really, we could trace it back to Bobby Bowden, but at least they did make it to a national championship game with Jimbo Fisher, whatever the case may be. I put everybody in a box. That's not fair. He doesn't belong in that box. You know, he's got several teammates that are going to be good players potentially. Brian Burns is a guy that looks like he's going to be a player in this league. They've had some guys. Timmy Jernigan, now that I'm thinking about it, he's not a stud by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not trash. But Asante Samuel looks like he could be really good. And so let's flip his card over and take a look at what he potentially brings to the table as a corner in this draft. So first thing you take a look at is his speed. He ran a 4.45 at his pro day. There's a bit of a disparity between his 2 times. His first time was a 4.45. The second time was a 4.52. So he's somewhere in that vicinity, and it looks like that on tape. I just gave him the benefit of the doubt and says he runs a 4.45. That's fine. I'm not going to kill him because I didn't see a bunch of guys beating him over the top. And I saw him running with guys down the field. Now, was he step for step in the hip pocket? Not every single time, but he was close enough within striking distance to make a play on the football. So I think he can run. When he opens up and he has to go, I think he can do it much faster than slow. He's got quickness. And honestly speaking, I think his home in the NFL may ultimately be in the slot. You know, that's what we usually try to do to guys his size. We try to shoo them inside. He doesn't want to go inside. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But he's got quickness. He's got the quickness to be able to play inside if need be. And he was at one point a nickel corner for Florida State before going outside full time. So he's got the ability to play inside, and that quickness is what really aids him in being able to do that, especially on the routes underneath, whether inside or outside. His quickness is what allows him to stay in phase with receivers and in the hip pocket to try and make a play on the football. Does a really good job of mirroring wide receivers down the football field when he has to turn and open up and run, or whether they're running an in-breaking or out-breaking route. He does a really good job of staying hip to hip. Anticipation. I think the one thing I've noticed with guys that have bloodlines where they've got a dad that's played in the league, and I don't know if these guys, like, I think it's synonymous with basketball players when you see basketball players have children and they turn out to be really good. They've been coaching up their kids since birth, essentially. You know, the reason Steph Curry's a hell of a shooter is because his dad, Del Curry, was one of the better NBA shooters during his era. And he was teaching his son to shoot from a very young age. When you look at, Dwayne Wade's son or LeBron James's son, these guys, they've been coaching up their kids since birth, essentially. And I'm starting to get the sense that these cornerbacks, especially corners, not necessarily wide receivers or any other position, cornerbacks in particular, if your dad played in the league and you ultimately play, the same position that he played at corner or safety, what I'm realizing is that these guys are on the next level of awareness. They just get it. There's a different level of understanding of the game and what the offense is trying to do to you. I watched Antoine Winfield Jr. last year, and he just gets it. And we knew that coming into the league out of Minnesota, but just to see him do what he did in his rookie season, that kid just gets it. He just understands it. He sees it. He knows it, and he knows what's happening and what he needs to do to prevent the offense from making a play. And I see the same thing with Asante Samuel Jr. I see the same thing with Patrick Surtain II. You see it with these guys. I see it with Elijah Molden. These guys just have a different level of understanding. And he's one of these guys, his anticipation and awareness, off the charts. Feisty, willing tackler. He's a guy that will get in there and mix it up. Doesn't always wrap up, but he's not afraid to throw his shoulder and his 190-pound frame around. That's a good thing. It could be a bad thing, but all in all, he's not afraid. There are some guys that are at the cornerback position that look like they want no parts of contact. If they can avoid it, they try to. He's not one of those guys. Good change of direction and click and close ability. Again, these are the things you have to have if you want to challenge things underneath, in particular the click and close. And then if you want to be able to run with guys down the field, stay hip to hip, you got to be able to have good change of direction. If you don't have that change of direction to be able to turn, pivot, open up your hips and run, you lose ground. Guys are able to then separate vertically. That's part of the reason, even though he's not a burner by any stretch of the imagination, guys just don't get free from him. He's usually right there. Even if plays are made, he's usually right there. Competitiveness at the point of catch. Most of these corners in this draft, and there are a lot of guys I've watched in the past that are top level corners that don't have the competitiveness at the point of catch that I'm seeing from these guys in this year's draft. I mean, even when you think the ball is complete, these guys are still raking and scratching and clawing, trying to get the ball out, and it's never over. You don't have to give up on a play because the guy caught the football. You can still reach in there and snatch it out. You can still stick your hand in a cookie jar and come out with a cookie. And he's one of those guys that just doesn't give up. Is very, very competitive at the point of catch. He's got ball skills, although you could argue that his ball skills are still developing. We'll talk about his ball skills and why they probably aren't where they need to be. But the fact that he can make plays on a football that's a plus because, you know, if he can start to put together some of the other things that go along with having ball skills, then he'll be able to make plays on the football. The simple fact is he can catch. And that's half the battle when we talk about ball skills with some of these cornerbacks. Versatility, I mentioned that already. This is a guy that can play press man. He can play off. I think he's a lot more comfortable actually coming up. I don't think he's as comfortable playing off. I think he likes getting up and being closer to the wide receiver. I think he's a guy that can play man or zone. He can play inside or outside. So there's a lot of versatility. He's adamant about playing outside. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but the versatility does exist here with Asante Samuel Jr. Bloodlines, obviously his dad, all-pro cornerback in this league, two-time Super Bowl champion. What more can I say? Not much more to say. He's got a legacy to uphold. His dad was a damn good player in this league. So he's coming in, and he's looking to uphold the Asante Samuel name in the league. So his bloodlines definitely run deep. Weaknesses. His height and length. You can't ignore these things, especially if he wants to play out wide, where the big boys play. It's one thing if you kick him inside, you may be able to hide him. Even though I've talked about this, these things happen in waves. You know, in the league, once upon a time, the rage was big slot receivers. You know, Jake Reed was a big slot, and Joe Jurevicius was a big slot, and Ed McCaffrey was a big slot. Like the rage back in the day was have a big guy inside. Well, that shifted in the early 2000s to the small receiver with Wes Welker really hitting the ground running, and then you started to see this influx of the Danny Amendolas of the world, and things just took off from there. And the small guy inside became the nuisance, the guy that you couldn't cover and the receivers or the quarterback's new best friend. Now it's shifting again, where teams are starting to move around all different types of sizes of receivers inside. You're getting your number one receiver. It used to be where the number one receiver, yeah, he'd move around a bit, but he wasn't moving around all that much. It's not uncommon to see Julio Jones in the slot anymore. It's not uncommon to see a big 6'3", 6'4" guy inside working the slot. It's not uncommon to see Devontae Adams working the slot. So it's not like you can hide smaller guys inside anymore, but you're more likely to get a smaller jitterbug type of receiver inside than you are outside. If he's going to be out there with the DK Metcalfs of the world, the big boys out there wrestling, tussling with them, he's at a disadvantage. A very stark disadvantage with his height at about 5'10", and his length. He's got 30-inch arms. I mean, he's not stopping anybody with 30-inch arms. So his size is a problem, especially if he's going to play outside with the big boys. But we'll see what happens. Needs to LLC more consistently. For me, if you want to be in my top 5 of my cornerback list, we can't be having a discussion about you being an LLCer. You know that's one of my biggest prerequisites to being a difference-making corner in this league is being an LLCer. For those of you unaware or unfamiliar with that term, this is something that I've been talking about for years, as long as I've been doing this. LLC for corners means look, locate, and contest. If you can't find the football, so first and foremost, you got to look. You got to look back. Too many times we see guys face guarding, or they think they're beat, so they don't turn around. They don't want to look because they think if they look back, the ball's going to go over their head. You got to find the ball first. So look. After you look back, now you got to find the damn ball. Okay? If you don't look first, you can't find it. That's number one. So once you look back, now you got to locate. Where is the damn ball? And once you locate it, now you can contest. You can either knock it down or you can pick it off. You got two options at that point. He's a guy that a lot of times doesn't look. He's not looking at the receiver. Or the ball. He's looking at the receiver. He's playing the receiver. And sometimes guys are taught to do that, especially when you're beat. You don't have time to turn and locate. You look at the receiver, you watch his reaction, and he'll tell you when the ball's coming, and you start raking like hell, hoping you get a piece of the rock or get a piece of his arm, and he drops it. However, if you're in phase, if you've done everything right, and you're hip to hip, you got just as much right to the ball as he does. Turn around, look, locate, contest. He doesn't do that all the time. That's why the interception numbers aren't what they should be, is because he's not a guy that looks, locates, and contests. That's why he's got so many PBUs instead of interceptions. He's got 29 PBUs in 3 years. That's a ton of pass breakups. 29 of them. That's a ton. Some of those should be converted to interceptions. Probably 4 or 5 of them, if he just turn around and locate the football. But he doesn't. So he needs to be more consistent in that regard. He can get that under control. It'll change his fortunes at the next level. He's probably going to have to swallow his pride and go inside. It's a question right now because, A, if he can do it outside, let him do it outside. He wants to do it outside. He's adamant. He said it at his pro day. I can play outside. I'm made to play outside. It's what I've been doing. I've been playing outside. I can get it done. And he cited Jair Alexander. He said, well, Jair Alexander is one of the best corners in the league, and he's my size. And I know I can do it. He's adamant about not going inside. His dad didn't go inside. He doesn't want to go inside. And frankly, you want big bucks, you play outside. And he knows that. So in his mind, I think he's sold himself on the fact that he is a boundary corner, not a nickel, not a slot. And he may get to the league and he may not be able to keep up with the big boys outside. He may not be able to fight with them. He may not be able to run with some of these speedsters. And a team that drafts him may say, hey, look, man, we gave you a shot out there. You're not fit for outside work, man. You got to come inside. And he's like, I don't want to go inside. That could be a problem. I want guys coming from the collegiate ranks into the pros that are willing to do whatever. If you come to them day one and say, hey, look, we got 2 stud corners outside. We drafted you to be a nickel. We need you to kick inside. I want you to be ready to do that without any fuss, no hesitation, and go be the best damn nickel possible. And if an opportunity for you to go outside arises, maybe we'll move you out there. But for the time being, we drafted you to be a nickel. We don't want any lip. I just want you to jump inside and kick ass. I don't think he's willing to do that right now. I don't think he's willing to do that. Does he truly possess top end speed? That's and that's more of a question than it is a knock on him. I don't know if that's legitimate, sustainable speed where the best of the best are coming at him and he's able to hold his ground consistently down the field. In college, he didn't seem to have that big of an issue doing it. Seemed like he was right there with these receivers on a consistent basis. But college is one thing. The NFL is a totally different animal. So for me, Asante Samuel Jr. is a second-round pick. I would not pick him in the first round. I think there are enough issues there that he's not a first-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if someone did pull the trigger late first, but I think he's more of a second-round pick. He won't get out of the second round, and nor should he. I comp him to Chris Harris Jr., a guy that was undrafted out of Kansas, came in the league, scratched and clawed for everything he got, made his real mark in the league inside as a nickel, but could also play out wide and played his fair share of snaps outside for the Denver Broncos. At one point, he would play first and second down outside, and then on third down, when teams would try to work inside, he'd kick inside the nickel and take away their slot receiver. So Asante Samuel, I think, has a similar skill set to be able to maybe do that. He's a guy that I think will be able to really carve out a niche for himself inside if he's mentally willing to do that. And we talked about that already with Landon Collins earlier in the show about a guy not really willing to commit to something. If he's not willing to commit to being a nickel, that's problematic for me. That's part of the reason why I have him so low on my list, is because I need to know you're all in regardless of whether you're inside or out. So he's Chris Harris Jr. for me right now. Same body type, same build, same feistiness inside, a lot of the same traits and characteristics of a Chris Harris Jr. Now, can he have the same type of career? Harris Jr. was, as an undrafted player, was willing to do whatever it took to get on an NFL roster and to make his mark. Asante Samuel is coming in with expectations of being a baller. So we'll see if he's willing to do what it takes to be on a football team and excel in this league, even if that means going inside to the slot. So, Chris Harris or Asante Samuel Jr., my 7th cornerback in this year's draft. So, got a couple of super chats. I want to knock these out real quick. Cameron Montgomery, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Cameron Montgomery writes, to truly understand Jimmy Moreland's talent, how many guys in your top 10 are as good or better than him? Than Jimmy Moreland? I'd say right now, of the top 10 corners, and we're just strictly talking about Jimmy coming out of college. I'm not talking about Jimmy in the league, because Jimmy in the league hasn't been impressive really to this point. If you're talking about James Madison, Jimmy Moreland, I'd say he'd probably be my 12th corner in this draft. He's not better than anybody in the top 10 of this draft. But then again, he wasn't better than probably any of the guys in his draft either. Remember, Jimmy Moreland was a 7th round pick, and he was a 7th round pick for a reason. So Jimmy Moreland would be nowhere near the top 10. I think he'd probably be somewhere in that 12 to 15 range if you were to slot him into this draft, knowing what I know now. But again, he played at James Madison. The tape was good, man. Jimmy was a baller on tape, but again, it's James Madison, you know. So Jimmy's nowhere near the top of, and this is a really deep draft class. I'm probably not doing the rest of the guys in this draft any justice. He's probably more like somewhere in the late teens to the 20s, you know, in this draft, which is where he probably was in his draft. No different. Thank you for the super chat, Cameron Montgomery. David Graham, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, David Graham, who writes, first of all, double up, Thank you for doubling up, David. Greatly appreciate you. My man David Graham writes, love your insight. Keep it up, bro. Hashtag HTTWFT. Thank you for the support, as always, David Graham. All right, so with that said, we'll transition to my 6th corner in this draft. And it's a guy that I'm really a huge fan of. And we talk about my biggest risers in this process. He's my biggest riser at this position. It's Ifatu Melifonwu. And Ifatu Melifonwu is a name you've heard before because his brother, Obi Melifonwu, came into the league about 5-6 years ago, blew up the combine out of Connecticut. Ended up turning that combine performance into a 2nd round pick. He did not perform well in the NFL, bounced around on a few teams before bouncing out of the league. His brother is much better than he is, and there's much more substance. Remember, UConn is like a Division III program. It's not a Division I program. So his brother played at a major Division I program. He played in a Power 5 conference, and he's a damn good football player that continues to grow each and every single year. And so Ifatu Melifonwu is a guy that I'm really, really, really impressed with. And he grew for me and grew on me and shot up my list as I continued to watch film and go through the process. So let's take a look at Ifatu Melifonwu's. I keep putting his first and last name together. Ifatu Melifonwu's pros and cons. So you start with, he's a height, weight, speed specimen. Is this guy checks off every single box at 6'2", 210, with 32-inch arms. He checks off every single box. And, oh, by the way, he ran a 4.4 840 with that frame. 41.5-inch vert to go with 11.2 broad. This guy's a freak, just like his brother. Freak athlete. Runs in the family. So he's a height, weight, speed specimen right off the rip. Ridiculous length. I just talked about the 32-inch arms. He's got a damn near 80-inch wingspan. His wingspan is somewhere in that 78, 79 range, which is just stupid for a cornerback. So, again, this is a guy that kind of checks off all of those boxes when you say, man, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a freak here? Yeah, we're talking about a freak here. And Ifatu Melifonwu. Athleticism. I just told you about his broad jump. I told you about his vert and his ability to run. He's an athlete. He's an athlete, and you see the athleticism on the football field. It translates. He's not just a workout warrior. Physicality. I think the thing that jumped off the screen at me, that grabbed me first before anything with his coverage ability, was just his physicality in the run game. You know, I always tell you this, when I get excited about a guy, I always tell you there's a game in there that you can watch. If you want the best of this guy, if you want to know what he brings to the table, turn this game on. For me, with Ifatu Melifonwu, it's the Clemson game. Go turn on the Clemson game from 2020. If you want to see a guy dominate a game without actually picking off a pass, go watch him in that game. Watch him blow up wide receiver screens. Watch him break up about 4 or 5 different pass attempts from Trevor Lawrence. Watch him make tackle after tackle. Watch this guy impact the game in a multitude of ways. And you'll just say, wow, this guy's pretty damn good. And he is. Short, deep, intermediate, didn't matter. He was breaking them up. So it's his, and so tackling prowess is different than me saying a guy is willing to tackle. When a guy is willing to tackle, he's not turning down contact. That's what that means. He's willing to put his body in harm's way. Not saying he's a great tackler, but he's willing to do that. That's half the battle when we're talking about corners. Because some guys, they don't want the smoke. They don't want any parts of getting in the fray. They'd much rather let the linebacker or the defensive end or the safety handle that. He's a guy that actually goes and seeks out contact. I want the smoke. I want all of it. Oh, you want to throw a wide receiver screen to my side? Okay, I'm going to blow this shit up. Whether I make the tackle or I take the guy that's supposed to be blocking me and toss his ass into you while you're trying to catch it, I'm about to make some shit happen. So when I say tackling prowess, it's different than a guy that's willing to tackle. Tackling prowess means I'm going to get your ass on the ground. Simply put. Tackling prowess is different. He's got that. And I'm excited to see that with a guy his size, because sometimes you see a guy with that size and they still really don't want to get in the mix, which is hard to stomach for me when you're that big. LLCer and CNC ability. He's a guy that will look, locate, and contest, okay? And he's a guy that has that click and close ability that you have to have if you want to excel at this league. I talk about no free food at the cornerback position. Again, if you want to crack my top 5, and he's just outside of it, but I really like this guy. If this weren't such a deep cornerback draft class, he'd be in the top 5. In a normal draft at the cornerback position, he'd probably be your second, third, fourth corner at worst in that draft. But because it's so deep this year, he's pushed back a little bit. But I talk about no free food. No free lunches out here, man. There's nothing worse than watching a corner at 8, 9 yards off, and they're just throwing a steady diet of 5-yard stops, hitches, and 5-yard speed cuts. And guys are just eating the little nickel and dimers underneath. And you're like, come on, man, stop giving that up. That's free food you letting them eat on your dime. There's no free food over here with Ifatu Melifonwu. There's no free food. No free lunches over here. You got to pay. You want to eat, you got to pay. Competitiveness at the point of catch. I love that. That to me is aggressiveness as a corner at its finest. If you're an aggressive corner, if you got an aggressive mindset, then you're competitive at the point of catch. One of those guys that until a guy's down on the ground, I'm reaching, I'm scratching, I'm clawing, I'm trying to get this ball out of there incomplete. I want to be able to stand up at the end of this play and go incomplete and spread my arms out and look down at you like you thought you had one. Every single corner that I'm going to talk about tonight is competitive as hell at the point of catch. Ifatu Melifonwu, no different. Capable blitzer. This is a guy that I talked about, Asante Samuel Jr. not necessarily wanting to make the transition inside. Right now, he's focused on playing outside. This guy, I think, is a corner through and through, but yet he's told teams, look, I'll play wherever you want me to play. If you see me as a free safety, I'll do it. I'll drop over the slot. I'll play single high safety. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I've studied the game. I feel like I'm ready. I can play any position in the secondary, safety, free, strong, outside, inside. I've studied long and hard enough. I've been coached well enough. I think I can play anywhere. And if you want to move me to safety, I'm all for it. That's what you want to hear from a guy. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this team better, even if that means sacrificing what I've been working towards my entire career, which is playing corner. I love it. And I think he's fully capable of switching to free safety if need be in this league. I don't think he has to, though. I think he's got all the skills and ability to play corner and play it at a damn good level at that. Versatility, I just talked about that. Bloodlines, talked about his brother making it to the NFL, paving the way for him. Obi Melifonwu. So Ifatu saw what his brother did, saw what his brother went through, and a lot of times, if your brother fails, you saw what he did to not succeed, so you make sure you are not doomed to repeat the mistakes that your sibling made. Case in point, Derek Carr watched David Carr get his brains bashed in as the Houston Texans' first pick. And what he said to himself is, I'll never allow myself to get beat up like my brother did and become shell-shocked and half of what I was when I came into this league. He made the adjustments, and he's having a very, very good NFL career. I think Ifatu Melifonwu is going to be able to benefit from his brother's failures in this league. But make no mistake about it, his brother was a freak athlete at like 6'4", 220 pounds, and he could jump. I think his brother jumped like 42 inches in the vert and 11 something broad. Like, his brother was a stupid freak athlete. It runs in their genes, man. They're freaks. So bloodlines run deep with him as well. Weaknesses. He can anticipate more consistently. If he can do that, I talked about that awareness, and some guys, it's just innate in them. Maybe it's taught. Maybe it's innate. I think awareness is something that you can acquire over time. And I talk about the guys with bloodlines and their dads being in the league and teaching them the game from a young age, potentially, and them just knowing what a guy's trying to do or what the offense is trying to set up. And so they're on it immediately. They're taking it away or they're making a play. He's not there yet. So his anticipatory skills aren't where his physical traits are. They're trying to catch up. And if he could ever get those things to be even, his anticipation and his physical traits to marry up, this guy could be one of the better corners in this draft. But right now, his anticipation skills aren't there yet. His physical skills far outweigh his anticipatory ability. And once he can get his anticipation up, he'll be a much better player. Change of direction can be high and stiff. Anytime we start talking about these taller corners, you see that from time to time. Another guy that you see that with in this draft is Paulson Adebo. Just a very high and stiff back pedal, almost as if they can't bend at the waist, or at the knees, I should say. And so they're kind of up high. His change of direction can be a little choppy at times. It can be sticky. He can get stuck from time to time. I don't know if that's going to improve or not. I don't think that's a thing that actually gets better over time. Either you can or you can't. Or as they like to say, either you have oily hips or you don't. I don't think he has oily hips. Maybe he could get a can of DW40 and maybe it'll help him out. But right now, there's a little bit of stiffness there in his change of direction. And then there's a bit of an injury history. Look, at the end of the day, it's nothing major. There's no ACL tear or pectoral muscle injury or nothing major like that on the Carfax. But there is a couple of injuries that cost him some games. In 2018, he missed 4 games that season. 2019, he missed 3 more due to an injury. You know, in college, they don't have to disclose these injuries, so you don't always know exactly what took place. If it's a serious injury, you usually find out about it. But if it's a nagging injury, then you usually don't know. They just tell you it's a lower leg, it's a lower body injury, or it's an upper body injury, or they just don't disclose it at all. Either way, he missed 7 games in 2 seasons at Clemson. He played in every single game this past year, which is important. You want to put your best foot forward your last year going into the league. But the prior 2 years, he had missed a combined 7 games. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But all in all, man, I feel really good about Ifatu Melifonwu. This is a guy that has jumped up my draft board, and he's right now currently my 6th corner. I've got a late first to early second round grade on him at this very moment. My comp for him is Nnamdi Asomugha. If you remember, Nnamdi Asomugha, before the San Francisco days, before the Philadelphia Eagles days, when you go back to his Raiders days, he's a beast. Now, it took a while for the light bulb to come on. A lot of people don't realize Nnamdi's first 2 years in the league, ho-hum, you know. But that 3rd year, the light bulb came on. He took off. By year 4, he was the best in the league. And by year 5, you know, he was desperate to get that new contract, get the hell out of Oakland so he could make some money. And he finally got out of there and got to Philadelphia, got the big payday. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that reminds me a lot of Nnamdi Asomugha. He can run. He's long. He's physical. He can find the football. I think he is growing each and every single year. And if he continues to show that growth and maturation and we can get some more anticipation out of him, he could turn into a Nnamdi Asomugha type of player. I see the skills, the traits, the size, the length, everything. He looks like Nnamdi Asomugha. Now he's got to take his game to the next level and play like Nnamdi Asomugha. But that's what I see, and that's why I think he's got first round type talent. So Ifatu Melifonwu, my 6th corner in the 2021 NFL draft. So, got some super chats here. Want to knock these out real quick. First one is from Donovan Gregory. Thank you for the super chat, Donovan Gregory. Greatly appreciate you. Donovan Gregory writes, Lou, Zavin Collins weighs 270 and looks to play edge rusher. If he really goes edge rusher, where does he rank in your list? See, to me, you're too late in the game to be having an identity crisis. I think that hurts him, if we're being honest with one another. The thing that made Zavin Collins so appealing was his versatility. Oh, man, he's a big 260-pound off-the-ball linebacker that can drop into coverage, that actually can run. You can drop him down on 3rd downs, obvious passing situations as a rusher. There's so many things you can do. Now, if you tell me, hey, I'm 270 and I want to rush the passer, now I'm looking at you and I'm saying, you just lost a lot of that versatility I was excited about. Sure, you can still drop into coverage as an outside backer in a 3-4 defense. Yeah, he can still drop into coverage and still give you a little something. But he's 270. Who knows? He may put on a little bit more weight. I think this is the wrong time for him to decide, I want to be an edge rusher. You should have did that shit 2 years ago at Tulsa. So you could put edge rushing tape on film for everybody to see and evaluate. Now you've got limited amount of snaps as a rusher, and you want people to take that, extrapolate it, and say, hey, this guy's could be a dynamic rusher. And look, these guys can do that. You know, this is what they get paid to do, to evaluate and project. But you don't wait until 2 weeks before the draft to decide, you know what? F all of that linebacker stuff. I want to be an edge rusher. I think he's hurting his stock personally, if you want to be honest. I don't like this idea from him, you know, but we'll see what happens for him. I don't know where he would rank, because again, that was just a small part of his game. That wasn't the major part of his game. That was an added benefit. Oh, he can rush the quarterback too. That was an added benefit. That wasn't the main attraction. The main attraction was, man, he's big, but he's an athlete. He can drop into coverage. He can pick off passes. You know, he can be around the line of scrimmage. He can sort through trash and get to the ball carrier. And then an extra added benefit is he can line up off the edge and blitz and get to the quarterback. Now you're telling me that's supposed to be the main thing I'm paying attention to? I think that was the wrong time for him to decide to do that. So, and look, in my mock draft, he paid for it because he didn't get drafted in the first round. I don't know if you guys picked up on that or not, but in my mock draft, he was not a first round pick. So, we'll see what happens with him. Got another super chat here from Cameron Montgomery. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Cameron Montgomery. Greatly appreciate you. My man Cameron Montgomery writes, light and love to you, Lou. Keep doing what you do. Great breakdown. We need a young cornerback to learn from WJ3. Thank you for that, Cameron Montgomery. Really do appreciate you. And likewise, I think that they are looking to draft a corner. I'm not necessarily one to play outside that would learn from William Jackson III, but I do think they are looking to add another corner, which is why I mocked a corner to Washington in the draft. We'll see if they actually do pull the trigger on one or not in this draft, but this is a great draft class to pull the trigger on a corner. That is for sure. Got another super chat here from Terry Maples. Thank you for the super chat, Terry Maples. Greatly appreciate you. Terry Maples writes, 19, Jamin, 51, Jabril, 3rd, Brevin, and Nico Collins. 4th is my guy, Caden Stearns, that I've been telling you about for months. Keep the fire content coming. Thank you for that, Terry Maples. So you think Jamin at 19, I don't think Jabril Cox is going to be around at 51 in the second round. That's just my personal belief. As you know, I mocked him to the Saints in the first round. So I don't know if he's going to go in the first round. I honestly don't think he's going to go in the first round if I'm a betting man, but I know the Saints are very interested in him. Maybe they think they can move up into the second round and get him. But I don't think he'll be around at 51. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Brevin Jordan will definitely be around by the time we come up on the board. Well, I shouldn't say definitely. He'll be around in the third round. Will he be around for our pick, specifically in the third round? 74th overall is the real question. And then Nico Collins, I do think he'll be around at 74 and 82, which is where you have him being selected at 82. I definitely think he'll be around in the third round. Again, will he get to 82? In a draft where there aren't many big targets to get the football to that people love, he could be one of the first ones to come off the board. So we'll see what happens there. Terry Maples, double up, Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you, Terry Maples. Greatly appreciate you. Terry writes, no Alexa or fire alarms tonight? No. No fire alarms. I try to keep those to a minimum, although my fire alarm has been acting a little nutty. I think it might be time for a battery change. But, you know, normally when you got to change the battery, you just get a constant beep. That's not what's going on. It's just kind of random, out of nowhere beeps. But still, no fire alarms tonight. And my Google would be very, very upset if they heard it call them Alexa. It's not Alexa. It's a Google Mini. So don't call her Alexa. She might really get pissed off at you. But that being said, thank you for the super chat, Terry Maples. We then move and transition to my 5th corner in the 2021 NFL draft. And this is a guy that I absolutely love in this draft. Elijah Molden, Washington corner. He's a football player. And in every sense of the word, he's one of those guys that you look at him and you say, okay, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but he just gets it. He just understands the game at a very high level. And what he lacks in pure speed and dynamic athleticism, he makes up for, more than makes up with it, for it, with sheer awareness and anticipation. This guy is just a smart football player. And some of those things you just, either you have it or you don't. Some of it is innate. Again, the more film you watch, the more comfortable you become with what teams are trying to do, the smarter you get, the more you can become proactive in this league. Instead of waiting and sitting on your heels for something to happen, you're on your toes and you're ready to go. And Elijah Molden is one of those guys, like I talked about with Asante Samuel, that just gets it at a different level than most guys coming from the collegiate ranks to the pros. Let's take a look as we flip over his card and take a look at what he brings to the table. His first strengths are quickness and agility. If you're going to play inside in the nickel, you got to be quick, period. That's the biggest attribute you can have inside is quickness and agility. If you can move your feet, if you can transition in and out of cuts and breaks, you're going to have a chance inside, because the biggest thing you have to be able to do inside is react to what the receiver is doing, because you don't know. Unlike when you're on the outside, much by how a guy sets up his split as an outside receiver, you kind of tell where he's trying to go. You know, if he sets up inside, then you know his split is reduced. Okay, he's probably trying to run an out-breaking route or something towards the sidelines. He sets up wide and he's trying to get to, inside, and he's trying to stay away from the linebacker and the safety, but create enough space so that he can catch and make something happen. So you kind of know, say in-breaking route, just off of alignment. When you're inside in the slot, you have no idea what the hell is coming. Inside, outside, back towards the quarterback, up the field, you have no clue. Across the field, you don't know. And you got to be able to react to whatever you see. And he's got that agility and quickness to be able to do that. His awareness, off the charts. The most aware player in this draft at the cornerback position to me is Elijah Molden. And I would bet on him. Of all the players in this draft, I would bet on him to be the most successful inside. I think he's the best nickel in this draft, and honestly, I don't know if it's close. His ability to understand, like I'm watching him, and I want to say it might have been against BYU in 2019. I'm watching him against Zach Wilson and that crew. Or it might have been against Oregon in 2019 against Justin Herbert and his crew. I can't remember which game it was. But he's in zone coverage, and they've got a stack set to his side, and they run the running back on a wheel route, an arrow route over the onto his side of the field as well. So he drops in the zone. He's carrying the number 2 up the seam. He sees the running back coming out of the backfield, doubles back because the safety takes over the number 2 up the seam, doubles back, and takes away the running back. That's some Tyrann Mathieu shit, man. That's next level stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've watched Tyrann Mathieu staring at the quarterback. He runs with a shallow cross, takes that away. Then the quarterback is looking to throw the deep dig behind him. He stops, turns, pivots, takes that away, and now the quarterback's like, shit, he just took away 2 and 3 from me, and now he gets sacked. And that's what Elijah Molden did on that play. He took away the seam ball from the 2 receiver, then doubled back and took the 3, which is the running back on that play, coming out of the backfield on an arrow route. You're just like, shit, that's pretty goddamn impressive, man. Because he's just aware. There's a play in that same BYU game where Zach Wilson is just sure he's got an easy touchdown to his tight end. And he throws a loft job back in the end zone. And Elijah Molden is sitting there watching, waiting, and he kind of gets a late jump. And the ball's just in the air, and he backpedals and leaps up with one hand and snatches it out of the air. He loses it upon impact on the ground. But you're still watching that play in awe of this guy like, you dirty bastard. That was supposed to be a touchdown. He just gets it, man. It's a different level of understanding. Physicality, when you see him, you're not thinking, okay, he's about to lay the wood on somebody. But he is out here hitting folks. So I love the physicality, and I talked about this with Melifonwu. The tackling prowess. It's different when I say tackling prowess because that means you're willing to come up and hit somebody in the mouth. And you're getting dudes on the ground. You ain't up here worried about if the safety's going to get him or the corner's going to get him or the linebacker or the defensive end. Oh, they got it. I'm going to just stand back here. If y'all need me, I got y'all. Nah, he's going in there and he's getting the job done himself. Change of direction. He's got really good change of direction, especially underneath. Where his change of direction kind of lags is when he opens up to turn and run up the field vertically. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But underneath, when he's coming back towards the ball or going across the field or going out, he's on it just like that. Change of direction. He's right there on the receiver. He's an LLCer and a CNC ability guy. Got to be that. Again, if you're going to be in my top 5, which he is, you have to have those 2 traits. They are not negotiable, okay? Especially being an LLCer. You may not have click and close ability, but it's hard for you to penetrate my top 5 if you don't. But you may not have it. You may make up for it in other ways. You got to be an LLCer. That's a prerequisite for me. I don't like you as a player at the cornerback position if you're not an LLCer, because what that's going to lead to are penalty flags. When you don't look back for the ball, you're going to get in trouble. He's an LLCer, which is why he's got 5 career interceptions. He's got the click and close ability, which is why he has 20 pass breakups in his career. He's always around the ball. He's always there. And when he gets there, if he's there in enough time, he's going to pick it off. Competitiveness at the point of catch. Again, just about every corner that I'm going to talk about tonight, they're feisty at the point of catch. They're not giving up any loose change. All right. No, even the loose change, they care about pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, all of it. They want it all. No loose change. If you got the football, but it isn't secure yet, I'm trying to get it out of there. He's another one of those guys. Really aggressive at the point of catch. Capable blitzer. He doesn't have a career sack, but if you watch the film, you see a guy that times it up well, and he was blitzing from depth. At times, I'm like, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we blitzing this guy from that much depth? There's no way he should be able to get there to impact this play. That said, I see a guy that if you turn him loose, you give him some more free reins to run and get after the quarterback, I think he could actually be a guy that could be an effective blitzer at the next level. Versatility. This is a guy that played safety at Washington, played corner, and he did whatever it took. He's one of these, whatever you need, I got you type of guys. Took him 2 years to get on the field. He was a special teams demon at first. And then he finally got an opportunity at safety, took full advantage. That got him an opportunity at nickel corner. He's never looked back from that point forward. And thus, he's been a guy that has put up numbers at Washington and put himself in a position to be a late first, potentially early second round draft choice. His versatility is something that's definitely going to help him at the next level. Bloodlines. I talked about his awareness and that ability to just know what needs to be done. And I talk about how a lot of times it seems like with these defensive backs in particular, they just get it on a different level. And it's usually because they've got a dad or a brother or an uncle that played in the league, especially if it's your dad, because you're so close with your dad a lot of times. I can't speak for everybody's situation, but in Elijah Molden's case, his dad is a former first-round cornerback, Alex Molden, and you can tell that his dad instilled in him some of the basics of what needs to be done, what to look for, some of the finer-tuned things after going over the basics and knocking that out of the way so that you're not thinking on the field, you're just playing. He was able to give him some of the finer points of what to look for. Hey, how they're trying to set you up here. When they give you this look, they're trying to get you to go here so that they can throw the ball here. So act as if you're going, because he's great at baiting quarterbacks into thinking, hey, I'm leaving this guy open, only to take it away. That's next level stuff. When you start baiting quarterbacks, that's next level. A lot of guys are just looking to do their job. When you start going outside the lines and saying, not only am I going to do my job, I'm going to make the quarterback think this guy's open so I can pick him off or make a play. That's when you go next level. He's already there. I think that has a lot to do with his dad, honestly. Similar to Antoine Winfield Jr. last year, Asante Samuel Jr. this year. I think it has a lot to do with his dad, honestly. Weaknesses, size. Like I talked about with Asante Samuel Jr., not a big guy. All right, he's 5'10", $190. I mean, what are you going to do? He's not growing anymore. It is what it is. I don't think that hurts him because he's a nickel. Unlike Asante Samuel, who wants to go outside and play with the big boys, he's going to be inside as Elijah Molden. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, honestly. But it is worth noting. And yeah, you do get big guys inside sometimes. And if you do get a big receiver, that's when he'll be at a disadvantage. Lack of top end speed. He's not a blazer. He's a 4.58 guy. That's what he ran. That's not what you're looking for ideally. But when you have the kind of instincts and awareness that this guy has, it makes up for a 4.58 and not being able to run at 4.45. Because you can anticipate, you can get there before the guy that runs a 4.45 because he's got to think. He's got to see it first, and then he reacts. You're already running to the spot. You're already there. So, yeah, he lacks top-end speed, but he makes up for it with awareness, instincts. Can get stuck on blocks. I hate the fact that a lot of times he runs to contact in these situations like, hey, I got a gap that I got to fill, so I'm going to get in my gap and get in my proper fit. And then he just gets stuck on the block. And I'm like, if you didn't run to the guy to get blocked, you might have been able to make the tackle. Loses ground when opening up. That's probably his biggest detriment to this point is when I watch him on film, you can get vertical on Elijah Molden if he guesses wrong. If he's flat-footed, if he thinks you're going to break it off to the outside and you end up going up the field and he guesses wrong or you catch him flat-footed, when he turns to open up, he loses a little bit of ground. He's not as fluid turning and going up the field. And if you're running at full speed, he doesn't have the makeup speed to be able to catch up. And he doesn't have the length to close that gap if he's a step or two behind. So he doesn't have the same leeway as a longer corner to be able to be trailing in trail technique and still get back into play and make a play on the football if it's a well-thrown ball. So him losing ground when opening up is problematic when you run a 4.58 and you're 5'10 and you don't have long arms. That's when that could probably turn into a big issue down the field. But he can open up and he can mirror and go hip to hip with the guy, squeeze them towards the sidelines. He does that perfectly fine when he anticipates that. It's when he's looking for something else and he doesn't get that, and then he has to open up and run. I've seen guys get on top of him in that instance. But in any event, this is a guy that I look at and I see a late first to early second for me. And I see Tyrann Mathieu written all over this kid. To be honest with you, brutally honest with you, he's Tyrann Mathieu. He is a difference maker. He is a playmaker. He is a guy that roams the field. He sees it before you do. And he's setting guys up. He's making things happen. He's a football player. And I think some people can get caught up with the 4.58 and the 5'10 and the 190. All of that is fine. But you know football players when you see football players. Elijah Molden is a football player. So for me, he's a late first. I'd be willing to spend a late first on Elijah Molden. I would be. I think he'll ultimately go somewhere in the second round, however. He is my fifth corner in this draft. So we move on to my fourth corner in this draft, and it is J.C. Horn, the son of former Pro Bowl wide receiver Joe Horn. J.C. Horn is a guy that continues to mature and grow. I think he's got a lot of room for growth. I think there are some limitations to his game, some things he's got to clean up, which is why he's my fourth corner in this draft. But make no mistake about it, the guy is uber talented, and I like his game a lot. So let's take a look at J.C. Horn and flip his card over and see what attributes he brings to the table and what he could be in this league. So first thing I take a look at with him is he's a height, weight, speed specimen. And I've talked about that various times tonight with the corners in this draft, and add him to the list of guys that come in at over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds, and running a sub 4.5 40. I mean, again, anybody that's 6 feet or better, 200 pounds or better, and runs a sub 4.5, you're a height, weight, speed specimen. Because to me, the baseline at the cornerback position, if you're coming in, is, look, you're 6 feet, 195 pounds, and if you run a 4.52, okay, that's cool. You know, that's cool. You can get away with that. If you know what you're doing, you can get away with that. When you're 6'1", 205, and you run a 4.39 40 or 4.41, which is what he ran at his pro day, a 4.39 is what he was hand timed at. So 4.31, 4.39, or 4.41, whatever the hell it is, it's blazing fast. You say, okay, this guy checks off all the boxes. He's a height, weight, speed specimen. He's got athleticism. You got 11.1 broad. You got a 41.5-inch vert. And you see it on the field. All this stuff translates. You see him on the field utilizing all of these traits. So this is a guy that has the athleticism to match the frame. And now the question is, do you get the physicality? Is he a tackler? Does he make plays on the football? These are the things you have to look at after that. And that's what we're going to get into here. He's a physical football player in coverage. At the line of scrimmage, he wants to lay hands on you. 5 yards up the field, he wants to lay hands on you. 10 yards up the field, he wants to lay hands on you. 25 yards down the field, he wants to lay hands on you. He's a physical football player. He's very, very handsy, as I like to call it. He's very, very touchy-feely. He wants to know where you are at all times. He wants to grab, he wants to tug, he wants to hug, he wants to love. And sometimes you're like, hey, man, JC, get off me, bruh. Stop touching me. But that's a part of his game. It's what makes him what he is as a corner, is that he's a nuisance. He's always on you. He's in your face. He's on you. You smell his breath. You feel it on the back of your neck. You're like, bro, back up. He's not giving you that kind of space to operate. CNC ability. He's got that click and close. There's no free lunches around J.C. Horn. Of all the corners in this draft, he's the one guy where I can truly say there are no free lunches. Now, if he's playing off coverage, totally different story. Okay? He's not as gifted off as he is from press, man. You put him in somebody's face, you delete the airspace, and this brother is not going to allow you to breathe. Everything is contested. As a wise man once told me, nothing slides. And the reason that is because he can stick his foot in the ground and drive on anything underneath. Click and close ability. Competitiveness at the point of catch. I don't know if there's a corner in this draft more competitive at the point of catch than J.C. Horn. And that's saying a lot because I think a lot of these guys in this draft are super competitive at the point of catch. I mean, really going after it, really scraping, scratching, clawing. Even after the ball is caught, guys on the ground and they still reaching and trying to pull it out. Play's over, bruh. You lost that rep. It's okay. Still in there trying to grab it and rip it out. He's super competitive at the point of catch. Sometimes to a fault. He's got recovery speed. When you run a 4.39, you better have recovery speed. He's got it. He can get beat on something, and if it's underthrown or it's slightly underthrown, he can get back into play and make up for it. Seen him do it a couple of times on tape. He's a capable blitzer. This was a guy that started out at South Carolina as a nickel corner. Only the last 2 years has he been playing outside with the big boys. He was more of a nickel early in his career. So he was a guy that would blitz, which is why you see the sack numbers the first 2 years of his career that he had sacks. He had 2 sacks in 2018. He had a sack in 2019. And towards the midpoint of the 2019 season, he made the switch to outside and he never looked back. And so there are no sacks this year. Not as adept from blitzing from distance as he was in the slot as a blitzer. But that just goes to show you you can move this guy around because he did play in the nickel. You can play him in the nickel at times if you got to move him around, and you can blitz him from there, and he's a capable blitzer. Versatility, I just told you why he's a versatile defender. He can move all around the field. He can move to the left side. He can move to the right side. He can move inside. You know, there are corners where they pick a spot and they get comfortable. You know, you're watching Patrick Surtain II at times, and he doesn't move from the left side of the offensive formation, right side of the defense. He's right side. He's RCB, right cornerback, and he doesn't move. You know where to find him. And then there are times where he's just LCB. He's the left corner, and he's not moving. But all these guys move around. All these guys have the versatility to play man or zone. I think he's a lot better in press man than he is off in zone coverage. I don't think he's as good in off. So there is a little bit of a lack of versatility from that standpoint, but you still get the ability to kick outside, go inside, and move around and do a number of different things. So there is versatility with J.C. Horn. I've already mentioned the Bloodlines, but I'll mention it once again. His dad, Joe Horn, played in the league for a number of years, played his best football in New Orleans with the Saints, also played with the Chiefs, among other teams, and had a very, very quality NFL career. And so here's his offspring in the league looking to make a mark. And then upside. The reason that there's upside, I told you I don't like using the U word very often because you could throw that around for just about every prospect coming into the league because nobody thinks that the guy that they're getting is a finished product. So you think there's upside, definitely. But some guys are in clear packaging. Some of these players are in clear packaging. And when you get it, you know exactly what you're getting. You can look through the packaging and know exactly what you're getting. This is a guy where the packaging isn't clear. You can't see inside because he's just really scratching the surface as a boundary corner. This is not something he's been doing for 3 years like Patrick Surtain II. This isn't something he's been doing his entire collegiate career. He has been playing corner, but not outside. There are different rules and parameters when you go outside. It's not like playing inside. All right, it's a lot more physical. The game is a lot faster out there. Yeah, you're dealing with a lot less space to cover, but he's still learning the nuances of being outside. And so I think there is some upside. I think there is more growth for J.C. Horn. So I do think there's upside there. His weaknesses, only 2 career interceptions. So that makes you question, does this guy have ball skills? We're talking about 23 pass breakups in his career, only 2 interceptions. I'll take it a step forward because if there were 2 interceptions, one this year, one last year, would we really bring this up? No. Here's the thing. The guy didn't have any interceptions the first 2 years of his career. And then he gets 2 interceptions this year and he gets them both in the same game against Auburn. So essentially what I'm telling you is he played in 30 games and he only had an interception in 1 game. 2 of them in 1 game. What happened in the other 29 games? That you couldn't get your hands on a football and make plays. So that's where you start. And it's not because he can't catch. Because if you look at those interceptions, one in particular, like, that's a hell of a catch, man. He can catch the football. He's just got to locate it, and that's where we're going now. The very next weakness, inconsistent LLCer, and he's handsy. Why is he handsy? Because he's not confident. Why is he not confident? And he's a hell of a confident player. He's cocky even, borderline arrogant, okay? But the reason, not because of his mentality. In his mind, he's the best thing smoking. His shit does not stink in his mind. However, as a corner, you grab because you're not sure. You grab because you're not confident. You don't know. If I know where the ball is, I don't have to grab you. I'm going after the football. I don't need to grab you. If I see the ball, I'm going to go get the ball. If I don't know where the ball is and you look like you're reacting for the football, I panic. I get nervous. I'm going to start grabbing cloth because I don't really know where the ball is. I know you're closer to it than I am. I got to make sure you don't catch it. And I got to do whatever I got to do to make sure you don't catch it. And if that means grabbing you by the jersey, if that means slapping your arms down before the ball gets there, Whatever it takes, I got to do that. And hopefully I don't get caught with my hand in the cookie jar and I get away with it and I'm able to go incomplete and spread my arms and I don't see yellow laundry on the field and I can feel good about myself. His problem is he doesn't look back for the ball enough. He doesn't look back for the ball enough. He does sometimes, not enough. And the only reason he's so high on my list, being an inconsistent LLCer, is because the raw attributes, the raw skills and abilities are off the charts. They're off the charts. The competitiveness, the physicality at the line of scrimmage, the competitiveness at point of catch, the raw ability, 6'1", 205, 4'3", 940, all of these things you can't teach. So there's so much of that you say, hey, if I could just get this kid to look back. And sometimes these corners are taught at school. Don't look back for the ball. Play the man. Play his eyes. See when the ball's coming through his mannerisms, and that's how you make a play. Some of these guys are taught that. Play through the man. He needs to look back for the football. LLC, look, locate, contest. He doesn't do that consistently enough. And that makes him handsy because he panics. And you see it because this guy is flagged a ton. You can't watch a game with J.C. Horn in it without him getting 1 or 2 flags minimum. I watched 4 or 5 games. I totaled at least 7 or 8 penalties on him alone. And I love the reaction every time. Like, what did I didn't do nothing. Come on, bruh. Come on, bruh. Stop. I just watched you molest this man for 9 yards. You really gonna sit here with a straight face, shaking your dreads, telling me you didn't do nothing? Come on, man. Stop it. Stop. Seriously, stop. Stop. I tell my son that all the time. Stop. So he's gonna have to clean that up. He's gonna have to clean that up. His change of direction isn't the cleanest. He can get stuck sometimes. And a lot of times when he gets beat underneath is because he opens up his hips in one direction, tries to stop, turn, pivot to the other direction, and he can't do it fast enough. You know, when you watch Kyle Pitts beat him on a slant, that's what just happened. Couldn't turn and get out of his, plant fast enough to be able to make a play. When you see him get beat by Devontae Smith in 2019 on a slant, same thing. The Devontae Smith sells him outside. He opens up his hips. He then breaks inside. He can't get his foot out of the ground fast enough to turn and make a play. So his change of direction, not always the cleanest. It's not always problematic. But when he gets beat, it's usually one of the things you can trace it back to. And then finally, tackling issues. For him to be as big and physical as he is with these receivers at the line of scrimmage, you don't necessarily see that in him tackling. Like, it's a lot of olays going on. It's a lot of me ducking. I'm going to duck my head and I hope I hit him going on. And you're like, hey, bro, you got to clean that shit up. You got to be better than that. You can't be a top corner in this league, and that's the effort I'm getting out of you as a tackler. We can't let 4-yard hitches turn into 14-yard gains because you decided you were going to cut him and not see it. And then he just simply jumped inside of you and you go flying towards the sidelines without even touching him. So he's going to have to be better tackling. But at the end of the day, J.C. Horn is a talent. There's no mistake in that. I think he's a top 20 talent in this draft. I think that I would take several corners, a few corners actually above him, which is why he's 4th on my list. But I think he's worthy of a top 20 selection, and I think he will be selected in the top 20 of this draft. And I comp into Xavier Rhodes. I see a lot of Xavier Rhodes in him. Xavier Rhodes is a guy that when he was at his best in this league, roads were closed. All roads closed. You remember saying that. And Xavier Rhodes picked up a ton of penalties in this league. And he'd always turn around, me? Who, me? Yes, you, Xavier. Literally, you'd be in a jail cell if we were out on the street because you just assaulted that receiver. What do you mean, who, me? Same thing with J.C. Horn. Sometimes you get away with it. Sometimes you don't. He doesn't get away with it a lot of times. Neither does Xavier Rhodes. They really feel like the same player to me. So, we can only hope he turns into Xavier Rhodes 2.0 because, again, it was a small window, but for like a 2-year stretch in the league, Xavier Rhodes was one of the best corners in all of football. So we'll see if J.C. Horn can become that in this league. He is currently my 4th cornerback in the 2021 NFL draft. My number 3 cornerback in this draft. My number 3 cornerback in this draft is a guy that I absolutely love. There are some questions about his health, but if you can get past that, this guy's a stud. I'm talking about Greg Newsome II, cornerback out of Northwestern. So here's a guy that, not the biggest, as you can see, at about $190, but man, is he a ball player or what? Let's flip his card over and talk about what he brings to the table. Strengths, height, and length. You're talking about a guy that's a little over 6 feet tall and comes with a little bit of length, you know, some real range. You can look at him and tell he's got some reach on him there. Got some really good athleticism and speed. He's a 4.39 40 guy. Jumped a 41-inch vert and an 11.1 broad. So the athleticism is definitely there. And then when you turn on the tape, you see him go up and get balls out of the air. He's got 1 interception in his career. It was a ball that he had to go up and get. He's a guy that is a very good athlete. That's probably putting it mildly. He's a tremendous athlete, really. Very fluid hips, oily hips even, okay? Very light feet, you know, ninja-like. Very quiet, moves at a very rapid pace. Here now, gone in a second type of guy. Tremendous change of direction. No free food, no freebies underneath. You want to eat, you're going to have to pay. Physicality, he's a very, very willing tackler. Again, he's not in that next category up, but he's willing to throw his 190-pound frame around. I don't think you can tell him that he's not 205, which is probably at times to his detriment. But that's what you want. You want a guy willing to go out there, balls to the wall, throw his body around, and whatever happens, happens. It's football. Shit happens. He's an LLCer, and he's got CNC ability. So look, locate, and contest. That's the name of his game. He's always looking back for the football. Does a tremendous job of getting hip to hip and then turning and locating the football. Just outstanding job of doing that. And then he's got that click and close ability. So you want to run the 8 back to 5, or you want to run the 12 back to 10, or you want to run, looks like you're going deep and vertical on me, and then you want to break it off and run a deep 12-yard out. All right, I'm going to stick my foot in the ground. I'm going to be right there in your hip pocket when you try to catch this football. So his ability to click and close, stick his foot in the ground and drive on something coming back towards the ball or breaking out or in, exceptional. Competitiveness at the point of catch, again, I put him up there with J.C. Horn and Ifatu Melifonwu and all of these guys, Patrick Surtain II, just super competitive at the point of catch. Recovery speed, this guy doesn't get beat deep, period. Like, there are corners in this draft, like Paulson Adebo, for instance, or Caleb Farley. You can beat him deep on a double move. This dude, he's not for your shenanigans. Okay, is it an out or is it an up? You pick, but once you make your decision, that's when I'm going to run with you. What you're not going to do is get me to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. I jump the out, you go up, and now I got problems. And that's the discipline aspect to his game. Shit just doesn't get by him. Like, you might get him for some chump change underneath every now and again. And even then, I was listening to him talk at his pro day. And he said, I can't stand for a receiver to catch anything. Not even a 2-yard pass. It irks me. It bothers me. You can tell. You see it on the field when you watch him play. He doesn't even want you to get the loose change underneath. He's defending every blade of grass, but still. Because usually with guys like that don't want to give up the short change, they don't want to give up the loose change, they don't want to give you the chump change underneath, those are the guys that get beat because they're so aggressive on the underneath stuff that you can get them to bite, and then you can get them deep. Well, he's disciplined enough to not bite on anything that's a double move related, but yet still with enough agility and closing ability to be able to still get down and contest something underneath. So that's a rare skill. He's versatile. Can play inside, can play outside, can play from press man, can play off man, can play zone, eyes keying the quarterback. I watched him do it all, and I watched him do all of it proficiently. So this is a guy that I'm telling you right now is, I think, a sleeper in this draft. I don't hear enough people talking about Greg Newsome II, honestly speaking. But you get to his weaknesses. Only one career interception. That always gives you pause. Does he have true ball skills? You're talking about a guy that played in 21 games, which is not a lot of games, which we'll get to here in a second, but only one interception. You got 24 pass breakups, only one INT. Why is that? And for me with him is a lot of times he is there, but he's not there in enough time to make a play on the football. So he's there when he needs to be, but not in enough time to pick it off, if you understand what I'm saying. So there maybe a little bit more awareness, maybe a little bit more instincts to see where this ball is going. And again, that's part of the reason, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with why he's so disciplined and he doesn't get beat deep, because in order to pick off passes, sometimes you have to take risk. And sometimes they're calculated, sometimes they're reckless, but they're risk nonetheless. He's not one of those big time risk takers. And because of that, I think the interception numbers suffer because of it. So I think his discipline and the inability of receivers to get over the top on him is also a cause for only one career interception. You know, sometimes you get lucky too with interceptions. When you watch some of these guys that's got 7 interceptions in their career, or they had 8 interceptions, you know, 3 or 4 of those things, they got thrown to them, or right place, right time. Their teammate batted it in the air and it just falls into their lap. And they're like, oh, look what I found. Some guys aren't lucky. They don't get those. And when you're a really good football player, they don't throw to your side. So you don't get as many opportunities. But I digress. 1 interception. So you question the ball skills with Greg Newsome II. His angles to the ball upon completion are, they do cause a bit of concern. There is a little bit of cause for concern there, because there are times where he's so aggressive coming downhill, and if he doesn't make the play on the ball, you're like, bro, you're not in a position to get this guy on the ground now. You just kind of took a poor angle to making a breakup. And look, more times than not, he's going to break it up. But what happens if you don't? You come flying downhill on a comeback towards the sidelines, and you take a sharp angle downhill and you don't get the ball, and that guy's still in bounds and he turns up the field, and you're outside and the safety's all the way on the other side of the field. How is that not a 68-yard catch and run touchdown? Like, we can't have that. You know, if you give up, it's okay, you just gave up an 8-yard completion. It needs to be 8 yards or 9 or 10, and then he's out of bounds or he's down on the ground. And sometimes he comes flying down at a sharp angle. He doesn't get the ball, and he doesn't get the guy down on the ground either, because he's not in a position to make the tackle. What you're always taught is secure the tackle first. That's why you see a lot of guys, when they're breaking up a pass, they got that arm wrapped around the waist. Now, they tell you, do not wrap and turn. But you can put your arm there. Just don't turn the receiver. Why? Because if I swipe and I miss, I got that arm around the waist, I can wrap up and drag your ass down with me. If I don't have that arm over there and I miss, deuces. So his angles to the football upon completion sometimes are a little sketchy. Finally, his injury history is something that I think makes people pause. I mean, he's a frail body guy at $190 as is. And he had an ankle injury that cost him 8 games in 2018. He missed 3 games in 2019. He missed another 3 games in 2020. He missed 14 games total over a 3-year span at Northwestern. Never played a full slate of games his entire career. A lot of people were disappointed because Northwestern was having one of their best seasons in program history this past year. They're playing Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. They are just giving it to Justin Fields and the Buckeyes defensively, which Northwestern hung their hat on the defensive side of the ball this year. And Justin Fields is struggling. He's been picked off twice. They can't get into any kind of offensive rhythm. And he gets hurt in the second quarter of that game, doesn't return. And you could tell once he left the game, I'm not saying that Northwestern's defense completely fell off the grid because they hung in there. They hung tough, but they missed his presence in there. It changed things drastically for them. And a lot of people, that left a sour taste in their mouth. Like, this guy had a stage to go out and prove to everybody what kind of a stud he is, and he got hurt again. So that's something that I think people are definitely weighing with Greg Newsome II in this draft is, can we get this guy and keep him healthy and on the field? But again, if you can get past the injury history, to me, he's one of the best 3 corners in this draft. I've got a mid to late first round grade on him. I don't think he gets out of the first round, personally. But again, how much do teams value injury history in a year where we're hearing a lot of teams struggle with the medical for players because there was no combine? So they weren't able to gather all of the medical information that they needed, that they are accustomed to getting on a yearly basis with these prospects. They weren't able to do that in one central location this year at the combine. A guy like Greg Newsome II might be one of those guys that may suffer from that. We'll see. I comp him to Darius Slay. I see Darius big play Slay written all over him. If he can start making some plays on the ball like Darius Slay, their games are very similar. The size is similar. Their ability to move is similar. A lot of what he brings to the table looks just like Darius Slay. And just like Darius Slay, his ass can't stay on the damn field. And Slay is a guy that at some point is going to have a hammy or an ankle, and he's going to miss 3 or 4 games. That's Greg Newsome II right now. Hopefully that changes at the next level. But right now, Greg Newsome II is my 3rd corner in the 2021 NFL draft. My number 2 corner in the 2021 NFL draft is Virginia Tech, cornerback Caleb Farley. This is a guy that in a lot of people's minds is the best corner in the 2021 NFL draft. And I don't have any issues if you've got him as number 1. If you ask me, he has the most upside of any corner in this draft class. And honestly, I don't know if it's close. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think athletic-wise, I think he's the most freakish corner, athleticism-wise in this draft. And you look at his size at 6'2", 200 pounds, and running a 4.28 40, if that is legit and accurate, which is what he reportedly ran at his training facility before he elected to have back surgery again, which we'll talk about. That's a ridiculous time. He's a ridiculous athlete. And he's got ridiculous ball skills. Like, he's got the highest upside. He just started playing this position. We'll get into all of those things as we flip his card over and take a look at what he brings to the table. So, Caleb Farley, height, weight, speed specimen, right off the bat. First thing you notice is he's 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds, 4.28 40. Let's just call it a 4.3. All right. Whatever it is, that's dumb fast. 4.35, 4.3 flat, 4.28, it's dumb fast. Okay. Once we get to anything south of 4.4, we stop counting it. You're fast. Okay. You check that box off. He's got length that comes with that height, with that size, with that speed. He's got length. And to me, after know-how, after awareness as a corner, length is the next thing. Because how many corners that are not fast, slow of foot, have we seen in this league excel because of length? I mean, that was the claim to fame of the Legion of Boom. That was their calling card. Nope, we don't have the fastest corners. We're playing cover 3. We're not playing a ton of man-to-man. But what you're not going to do is get over the top on our corners. Why? Because they're long and rangy. You're not getting behind Brandon Browner. Why? Because he's 6'4" with long-ass arms. You're not getting behind Dick Sherman. Why? Because he's 6'2" with long, rangy arms. Because even if you're beat, I always remember that Dick Sherman play against Michael Crabtree in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. He's beaten on that play. And he reaches up, extends those go-go gadget arms, and tips the ball in the air, and it gets picked off. We all remember that game. That's what happened when you tried me with a sorry receiver. We all remember that game. He was beat on that play. But his arms were so long, he was able to recover. Tip it in the air, get picked off. Caleb Farley has that kind of ability with length as well. Supreme athlete. That's one of the reasons why this guy is, to me, the highest upside corner in this draft. He's a supreme athlete. It just looks different. It is different. Fluid hips, light feet. Guy just moves around the field very gracefully. Very, very easy. I talk about this all the time as an analogy in baseball. When you see a guy, they call it easy gas. When a pitcher is just up there and he looks like he's stroking 88. It doesn't look like he's efforting at all, any extra. And yet the radar gun says 99 or 101. And you're like, whew, that's easy gas right there. He's not even straining. That thing's just coming out of his hand with extra velocity. That's Caleb Farley on the football field. He just moves gracefully. It doesn't look hard at all. It's not running. And, when you see a guy at the combine running a 40 and he's running his absolute hardest, he's not breathing. You can see the guy that he's struggling, man. He is giving it his all, but that's the only way he knows how to do it. Caleb Farley would be one of those dudes. He's a track athlete, and you just watch him, and it just comes natural. He's not out here struggling. It's easy. And that's how his movements on the field look. Easy. He's got great change of direction. Okay. He's quiet at the line of scrimmage. So what I mean by that, and you're going to hear that again when we talk about Patrick Surtain II. He's at the line of scrimmage. What guys want to do at the line of scrimmage as receivers, especially if you're one of those corners that likes to get up to a guy at the line of scrimmage but not lay hands. And Caleb Farley is a guy that really doesn't want to lay hands on you. I just want to run with you. I just want to be close. I don't want to give up the small change. The loose change, the little 5-yard stop. I don't want to be 8 yards off and you get that as some free money. I don't want you catching the 5-yard hitch. So I'm going to just come up here and be in your hip pocket from the word go. So I don't necessarily need to put hands on you, though. So he's one of those guys that at the line of scrimmage, I'm not going for all of your bullshit. You know, the pitter-patting and the head and shoulders. You're trying to give me dandruff at the line of scrimmage, and you look like you're having a seizure. And then you're trying to break me off with a crossover, so I open up my hips prematurely so you can cross me over and go inside. I ain't going for none of that shit. Him and Patrick Surtain II, they're like quiet engines. You don't hear them. They don't move at the line of scrimmage. You do all of that extra shit. You can try to cross me up, head and shoulders, give me dandruff. Do all that dancing. When you make your move, your real move, that's when I'll start moving. That's when I'll turn and open up and we'll run together. But all of that extra stuff you try to get me to do to open me up and break me off at the line of scrimmage and get me in a trail position, I ain't going for it. Quiet. You start the car up and it feels like it's not even on. That's him at the line of scrimmage. That's Patrick Surtain II at the line of scrimmage. J.C. Horn, he's loud. He's the muscle car. You hear him coming. You feel him at the line. You feel him at the line of scrimmage. You know he's there. You hear him. These guys are quiet. Very, like Elmer Fudd. Very, very quiet. He's an LLCer and CNC ability. So he's the guy that, look, you don't get 6 interceptions in 2 years and take 2 of them or 1 of them back to the crib if you're not looking for the football. You don't luck up into 6. You might luck up into 1 or 2. You don't luck up into 6 in 2 years if you're not an LLC. If you're not looking, locating, and then contesting and going and getting what you think is yours, you don't come up with 6 of those things in 2 years. So right then and there, you know this guy's an LLCer for sure. And you watch him on tape and you see it. You know, he's running with a guy, stride for stride, in the hip pocket, turns, locates. All right, ball's mine. The ball is mine, the ball is mine, the ball is mine, the ball is mine. CNC ability, click and close underneath. Again, when you are able to do that, you make everything tough underneath. That's the slant. That's the quick out. That's the comeback. That's the shallow cross. When you're able to run with that guy across the field. When you got click and close ability, you stick your foot in the ground and you drive on that thing. He's got that ability. So that makes all of the underneath stuff tough to come by. No free lunches, no free food. If you want to eat, you got to pay. And sometimes their money is good. Their credit is good. But a lot of times, it's not. Access denied. Insufficient funds. Ball skills. I don't need to really reiterate this again. He's got ball skills. Guy's a former wide receiver, and it shows. Recovery speed. Again, you run a 4.28. I'd like to see that manifest itself on the football field. And with Caleb Farley, it does. Okay? I've seen this guy beat on a double move, get back into the play, and break it up. Now, again, you don't want to put yourself in that position, getting torched on a double move. However, it's good to know that if a guy's got 2 steps on you, you can make up that ground, get back into play, and have a chance. Not always are you going to get back into play and not get yourself into a bit of trouble, which I saw him get in trouble on film as well. But he's got the recovery speed to make up for any losses at the line of scrimmage or early on in the rep. Special teams value. This is a guy with a kickoff return touchdown under his belt early in his collegiate career. Again, I told you, ex-wide receiver. So he comes in very comfortable with ball in hand, which is why he has 2 return touchdowns in his career. One on an interception return, the other on a kickoff return for a touchdown. So in a pinch, he could be one of those special guys like a Patrick Peterson per se. Early in his career, Patrick Peterson, dynamo as a punt returner. Never really was able to rekindle that magic after the rookie season. But, in special instances, if you're feeling frisky, you need a big play, you need a spark, and, the Cardinals would just throw Patrick Peterson back there and see if he could do something for him. Maybe you could do that with Caleb Farley every now and again. I don't know if that's something a team would look to explore, but there is that ability in him in college. He does offer a bit of special teams value. Tackling or upside. And the reason there's upside, I told you I don't like using the U word. The reason there's upside is because this is a guy that was recruited to Virginia Tech as a high school quarterback. He comes to Virginia Tech. he makes the transition to wide receiver, and then ultimately swaps from offensive to defensive side of the football. So he just really started playing the cornerback position 2 years ago, 3 years ago, now that he sat out a year. But essentially, this guy is raw still. And the fact that we're so advanced in this process for a guy that's only been playing the position really all of 2 years, it's pretty amazing, is what it is. So when you hear the word upside, there must really be a reason why you're using it. I'm using it in this sense because this guy is just scratching the surface. So upside is an understatement, honestly, with Caleb Farley. And that's why a lot of people have him as their number one corner in this draft, because of what he projects as if he continues on this upward trajectory that he's currently on. Obviously, we didn't watch him in 2020 because of the opt-out. But, before that in 2019, he was on pace to be one of the best corners in all of college football. So if we're continuing on that upward trajectory, you're thinking that this guy's only going to get better. That's why the upside is there, and that's why people have them as their number one corner in this draft, and I respect it. I know why. The reason he is not my number one corner is the injury history. Simply put, I'm keeping a buck with you. But let's get to his weaknesses. We'll expound upon that here in a second. We'll panic at times and get handsy. So what you'll see from him is, and again, it's a sign of a guy that just hasn't been doing it a long time, because his skill set, his attributes, his raw ability suggests that he should never really be in full panic mode. Bro, you're too talented and gifted of an athlete to panic. You should be cool, calm, and collected at all times. So what? Somebody beat you off the line of scrimmage and you're trailing and they're running a deep route. You're 4.28, bro. How many dudes is doing that in the league? Turn on the afterburners and go get him. But he panics. Why? Because he's still green and wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac. He's still in his infant stages as a corner, so he isn't comfortable in those waters yet. So when he's beat and he's not close enough in trail technique to be within arm's reach, and he doesn't know where the ball is, he panics. Now he's face guarding and he's grabbing and he's tugging and he's hugging and he's loving. And you're like, bro, you're better than that. And you're picking up flags. And I watched him do that on tape. And a lot of those times when that happens to him, it's because he got duped by a double move. He's so aggressive underneath. He wants everything. And I talked about this. That's why Greg Newsome II is so interesting, because there is this, like, it's almost like this contrasting dynamic with him, in the sense that he doesn't give up anything deep, but because he doesn't give up anything deep and he's so cautious, he's not taking the risk necessary to make plays. Well, Caleb Farley's, he's all in. Chips are all in the center of the table, and he's like, bro, I'm going after it. Well, when you do that, you get beat sometimes, because you smell that out and you think you about to pick this and take it to the crib. Time to go make a residential call. They say, nah, bro, got him, out and up. Smoke him if you got him. So he can get beat on a double move, big time. He's going to have to get better at being able to diagnose and know when I can take a chance and when I got to fall back and play cautiously and keep everything in front of me. Tackling can be problematic for him. He is not the best tackler. And we see this all the time with guys that are making a positional switch from offense to defense. The physicality just a lot of times simply isn't there. If I've played quarterback my entire life, played some wide receiver, and now you're asking me to go tackle somebody, I really don't want to do that. Like, that's not what I've been doing my entire life. I've been trying to avoid getting hit. Now you're asking me to go seek out contact? I don't know about that one. He's one of those guys you could tell in his head, he's like, I'd much rather not. If y'all can handle it, I'd really appreciate it. Now look, if you need me, I'm on standby. But if at all possible, I'd like for you guys to keep me out of this if you can. So he's got to get better. in that regard. He's got to be better at tackling. And lastly, and this is the biggest thing with him, and reports are running rampant now, as they often do this close to the draft now. You get these reports that surface 72 to 48 hours prior to the draft, and this is no different. Oh, he's potentially going to fall out of the first round because of his injury history. Look, I've been saying this for the last 2 months about Caleb Farley. If I were a team in need of a corner, I would have to get 1,000% assurance from my team physician, my medical staff, that, hey, this kid is, from a physical standpoint, he's fine. Now, his body may break down on him and he may get injured, but just looking at all of the medical data we have and all the procedures he's had already before getting here, he's going to be fine. I've got to be reassured of that 10 times over to feel comfortable pulling the trigger on him in the first round. I've got to feel comfortable, because when we start having conversations, it's one thing if you've torn your ACL or you tore your Achilles, you're like, that sucks. But with modern science and the way that we've evolved in surgery and procedures and the recovery process, ACL, an Achilles, guys come back from that all the time. Sometimes stronger and better than ever. We start talking about backs, I get nervous. There are two things I don't take very lightly in any sport. Basketball, football, baseball, I really don't give a shit. Your hip and your back. We start talking about, and your neck. Those three things. Let me add neck in there too. We start talking about any of those three things, I've got major issues. Because those are the three injuries and places on your body that could lead to early retirement. He's already had surgery on his back, and the man hasn't played in a competitive game since 2019. He sat out the whole 2020, and this is the stuff I don't get. Because if he was having any issues with his back during the whole 2020 campaign, he could have quietly gone and had back surgery, and nobody would have known. The man literally waited until it was time for the draft to go and have a procedure to reduce the amount of pain he was feeling and pressure he was feeling in his back on one of his discs. He had a discectomy. This was not the time to have that. Now, again, I'm not in his body. I don't feel the pain that he feels. But if there was a twinge of pain in November or in October when you opted out, why didn't you get the surgery then? You could have gotten it done quietly. Nobody would have known, and you move on. Now that we know you had back issues in 2019, which cost you a couple of games, and you were fighting through that the entire season, I believe. I don't even know if he missed any games. I know he was fighting through back spasms in 2019, and now you have more back issues that caused you to have surgery. And I don't want to hear about it wasn't invasive surgery, and it was in and out, and he was not an inpatient. I don't care. It's surgery on your back with your disc. That scares me. I don't blame every single team for saying he's not on our board in the first round. Now, if he's around in the second, I will take a second round flyer on him. But I don't blame any team for looking at Caleb Farley and saying, I can't do it. Especially if the medical team doesn't sign off. But I can tell you this, the man is a supremely gifted athlete and a hell of a talent. It'd be a damn shame if his career never is what it's supposed to be because of his back. We'll see. But right now, he's a top 50. Honestly, if the injury history were a non-factor, if this were out of the equation, he's a top 10 talent in this draft. For me, with the back, I'd be comfortable spending a mid to late first on him. Because if you're a team picking at the end of the first round, mid to late first round, you're probably in a position where you can afford to take a risk on a guy like Caleb Farley, because you have no business getting your hands on a guy like him first and foremost. None. Zero. He's supposed to be reserved for the bad teams. So if you're sitting there at 24 and you're the Steelers and you need a corner, here's your man right here. Because you have no business getting your hands on Caleb Farley. As Mike Tomlin once eloquently said, I don't want to be bad enough to be able to and lose enough games to draft a guy that looks like you, which is what he said to Chase Young. Well, now you're actually getting the best of both worlds. You didn't have to lose enough games, and you're getting a guy that has the kind of talent that can change your defense. Now, again, how's his back? So, Byron Jones is the comp. Stupid athlete. Byron Jones is a ridiculous athlete. We all know that's how he got drafted in the first round. He blew the combine up with one of the most ridiculous vertical leaps and broad jumps we've ever seen. I mean, just off the charts. Ran fast, jumped high, jumped far, tore it up. Ended up parlaying that into a first-round pick by the Dallas Cowboys. Caleb Farley is a similar type of athlete. Run stupid fast, jump stupid high, jump really far, all of that good jazz. He checks all the boxes, except the most important one, and that's availability. He's got all the ability in the world, but the availability box is the one that matters most, and you can't check that one off for sure with him. In any event, he's my number 2 corner in this draft. There's no denying the talent, man. It's there. It's abundant, and he's got a chance to be special if he can stay healthy. Got a couple super chats. I want to take these before we get to my number 1 corner in this draft. This first super chat is from Chauncey Davis. Thank you for the super chat, Chauncey Davis. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Chauncey Davis writes, Lou, my wife's aware when I'm checking you out. Just pop her head in the computer room and said, is Lou on? Like she's been knowing you for 20 years. Hey, that's pretty cool, man. Tell your wife I said hello as well. But that's pretty cool. I'm glad she knows that. First of all, I'm flattered that you're willing to take the time out of your day to chop it up with me, and spend the time that some of these streams, as you can see, I've been on for every bit of 2 hours, and just spend that kind of time out of your day. I really appreciate that. And secondly, I think it's pretty cool that if you're spending that kind of time in the computer room, she knows, okay, he's probably watching Lou. That's pretty dope. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for sharing that, Chauncey. Really do appreciate you as always. And once again, make sure you tell your wife I said hello and sorry for taking up so much of her time. Got another super chat. This one is from Donovan Gregory. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Donovan Gregory, who writes, sup, Lou? Sup, Donovan? He says, you got Caleb projected in the top 15, but with serious back issues like Pippen in 98, will he be another Bryce Love? How far may he drop? I'll tell you like this. I did not have him in the top 15. I actually had him going 16th overall to the Arizona Cardinals. I have him projected top 15 in this draft because I think the talent is so hard to overlook if you're in need of a corner. That said, especially after the first 2 or 3 come off the board, it's easy to say, you know what? I'll take PS2 instead. Or I'll take J.C. Horn instead. Or I'll take Greg Newsome II instead, even though he's got his own set of issues. It's not back, right? It's easy to do that when those guys are around and available. It gets harder to do that as you start to get to the Asante Samuels and the shucks. What's the name of the damn Georgia corner? Eric Stokes. Or the Paulson Adibos. Once you start getting to those guys, that's when it becomes, the Tyson Campbells and all those other guys in that next wave of corners. It gets easier to say, all right, we need to take Caleb Farley now. So I'm interested to see when a team gets to the point where they says, you know what? we're going to take a chance on this kid, or we're comfortable with what we've gathered from a medical standpoint on him, and we're going to pull the trigger now. I think Arizona's the spot at 16, personally. You know, they're a good football team. They're a veteran team. It's crazy. They went from young to veteran overnight, signing it's A.J. Green, signing J.J. Watt. They're a veteran squad. They got Chandler Jones. They got DeAndre Hopkins. They're a veteran squad now. So they're ready to win now. They traded for Rodney Hudson. They're a veteran football team. They're ready to win now. So they can take a chance. I said all that to say this. They can take a chance on a Caleb Farley. They're in a position to do that. With no Patrick Peterson, there's a void at corner. They're in a position to take a flyer on a guy that has top 10 talent, and they're at 16. They're in a position to do that. So, and I think they should. If everything checks out, I think they should. I could easily see them saying, nah, not us. Somebody else, not us. And that's cool too. Could he be another Bryce Love? Absolutely. He will play in this league. Unlike Bryce Love, who never was actually able to suit up. Caleb Farley's going to play in this league. Now, Bryce Love may latch on somewhere else. He may get an opportunity with someone else, and he may actually play. Caleb Farley's not going to miss the first 2 years of his career and never see the field. It won't be a situation like that. I can't see him getting out of the first round. But we've seen there's a precedence for this. It's a little different. Not an apples-to-apples comparison, but in Jacksonville, the linebacker from UCLA, Miles Jack, was a guy that we perceived to be a top 5 pick. Had some issues with his knee. There was a medical report that said, hey, he's got a degenerative condition in his knee. It's not going to last. So you can take him. You may get 5 good years out of him, but then you're going to have to kind of reconsider what this guy's going to be able to do for you. We're past 5 years with Miles Jack at this point, if I'm not mistaken, and he's still going strong. So he fell out of the first round, though. And he was coming off of a year in which he got injured, which is another thing to consider. Same with Jalen Smith in Dallas. Perceived top 10 pick, tears his knee up to shreds in his final football game, is going to miss the following season, whether you draft him first, second round, doesn't matter. And they took him in the second round. Now, this is not an apples to apples because he didn't sustain an injury in 2020. He just had surgery that is alarming to you just now, but he should be ready for the upcoming season. So it's not quite apples to apples in the comparison, but we saw 2 players that were perceived to be top 5, top 10 talent fall to the second round. But then we've seen guys that have gotten injured and still picked in the first round, like the cornerback out of Washington, Sidney Jones. The Eagles still took him at, I think, 14th overall, I believe. You know, he never really panned out in the league, but they knew he wasn't going to be able to play, and they still took him. That's because it wasn't something that they viewed as a long-term problem. This could be. I think someone's going to take him in the first round. I don't see him falling out of the first round. But thank you for the super chat, Donovan Gregory. Got another one here from Vincent Coe. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Coe. Greatly appreciate you. Vincent Coe writes, Greg Newsome to Washington football team. It's possible. I know Washington is in the market for a cornerback. They have done some homework on guys at 19 that they think will be available. Greg Newsome is one of them. They have spoken to Greg Newsome via Zoom conference call. So they have done their homework and due diligence on him. It would not shock me if they pulled the trigger on him at 19. Anything's in play at 19 for Washington. Any and everything is in play. So, including moving up, moving back. So, Greg Newsome definitely is in play. And that is one of the players that they have had contact with during this process. So, I would not discount Greg Newsome at all. DCJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DCJ writes, if cornerback 2 fell to number 19 besides Virginia Tech kid? Which one you got? He said, but I think it's linebacker, wide receiver, O-line, then cornerback in that order for the 19th pick, unless and hopefully not one of the QBs slide. That's the real question is, will a quarterback slide? I don't think it's going to happen. And how far do they have to slide for Washington to feel like they need to act? You know, if a quarterback that they really like gets to 12, is that enough to entice Washington to go up and get him? If there are no quarterbacks available, and I don't think there will be, that Washington is in love with, then I do think the order is linebacker. I think initially it was offensive tackle. They'd love to get the tackle out of the way right away. I think that tackle will be off the board because I think 3 or 4 of them will be gone by the time Washington hits the clock at 19, and at that point they don't want to reach for a tackle. So I think tackle's gone. I think wide receiver is out of the question unless, I've already mentioned this plenty of times, unless it's one of the Bama boys. Wide receiver's off the table, I think, at 19. Even though they've talked to some guys that I think they would consider at 19, like Kadarius Toney. I think Rondale Moore is more of a second-round guy. If he's there at 51, they may be interested, but I don't think he will be. I don't think they're going to reach for a Rashad Bateman at 19 or any of these, Kadarius Toney or any of those guys. I don't know if Kadarius Toney is really a reach at 19 as much as I just don't think we need him at 19. You can wait and get a quality receiver and feel good about it. It's a deep receiver draft class because of the work we've done in free agency, which is why it was important to do what we did in free agency at receiver and even along the offensive line with the addition of Eric Flowers today. Takes that need off the board, and so it puts you in a position where you don't have to reach. You can simply just take best player available, and if that's a linebacker at 19, so be it. If it's a cornerback at 19, so be it. You know, if it's a receiver, so be it. So we'll see what they decide to do. As far as the cornerback is concerned, the only corners that I would be willing to take at 19 would be one of the top 4 that I mentioned tonight. Surtain, Farley, Newsome, and J.C. Horn would be the only corners I'd be willing to take. And frankly, I don't think 3 out of the 4 are going to be available. Farley may be. I don't know if Washington wants to be the team to take that flyer or not. But I know they love Virginia Tech players. Does Washington? They've had success with Virginia Tech players. So I don't think they would pass up on an opportunity to select Caleb Farley if they thought he was going to be healthy. So again, it's something to consider because they really want Christian Darrisaw at 19. He's just not going to be available. That's really what it boils down to. Is he's not going to be available. He's going to be gone, long gone, by the time we get to 19. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for that super chat, DCJ. Finally, we get to my number 1 corner in the 2021 NFL Draft, and of course, it's PS2, PlayStation. Patrick Surtain II. Bloodlines run deep here. Dad was a damn good corner in this league for a long time. Patrick Surtain Sr. had some really good years with the Miami Dolphins where he was paired up with, let's see if I can test my knowledge. Who was the corner opposite of Surtain when they had a hell of a tandem? Jesus. I can see his face. I can't think of his freaking name. Oh, man. It was Surtain on one side, and yikes. I can't think of the other corner. It's going to kill me now. I wish I would have never brought it up because now it's going to kill me until I figure it out. I'll be talking and still thinking about that until it comes to me. But they were really good, man. Surtain on one side. God dang it, what's the other guy's name? I can see him with his damn arm sleeves on his arm and every damn thing. I just can't think of his freaking name. Anyway, Surtain is polished. That's why he's my number one corner. He's just so polished and refined. Everything he does is by the book. It's clean. It's technically sound. There aren't many holes in his game. Is he an elite athlete? No, he's not better. He's not a better athlete than Caleb Farley. Don't think he's a better athlete than J.C. Horn, if we're being perfectly honest with each other. He's just more technically sound than both of those guys. He's advanced in, to me, he's ready. He's a plug-and-play corner. You put him in right now, and he's ready to go. And he'll play like an 8-year veteran. Right off the rip. And I think that is the intrigue surrounding him and why I think he'll ultimately. Sam Madison. Thank you, DCJ. I think it is Sam Madison and Patrick Surtain were those two corners in Miami holding it down for years. Thank you so much. That is who it was. In fact, it was Sam Madison. And, man, were they good. They were a tandem. And like you said, they were small. They were not big guys at all. Either one of them. I don't think either one of them were over 6 feet. They were dogs. Both of them. Anyway, I digress. Let's flip this card over and take a look at Patrick Surtain II. Strengths. Height, weight, speed, specimen. You're talking about a corner that's 6'1", 203 pounds, ran a 4.46 40 at his pro day. Checks off all the boxes. Athleticism and length. He has it. Again, another long corner with athleticism, speed to match and boot, and the athleticism to be able to mirror a receiver, be in phase, hip to hip. And this guy, he just doesn't miss. Even when he is off, even when a play is made on him, it's not because of an epic fail by Patrick Surtain II. It was either a great ball or he was slightly out of position, but he's always there. Fluid hips, great change of direction. Great change of direction for Patrick Surtain II. He's what I like to call a smooth operator. Smooth operator. He's a smooth operator, man. Quiet as a mouse at the line of scrimmage. I talked about Caleb Farley and how he's just not really here for the games. He's not there for your shenanigans. You can do all the head and shoulders, dandruff shaking you want to do. You can try and cross them up. That's just, they're not there for that at the line of scrimmage. They're there to wait for you to declare whether you're gonna release outside or you're gonna release inside, and then they're gonna run and stay in your hip pocket. But you can do all the shaking and having seizures, and you can try your hardest to imitate an Allen Iverson crossover. They're not going for it, man. This dude, I just love the way he just stands at the line of scrimmage. He's not gonna put his hands on you. He's not an aggressor. He's not a physical, in your face. That's J.C. Horn. Like, he's not looking to molest you at the line of scrimmage. I just want to run with you. That's it. You know, if I could lay hands on you, I will, but I'm not going out of my way to put hands on you. I just want to run with you. I just want to be down. I just want to be cool. Can I do that? Be in your hip pocket. He's just standing there, man. Just like you see him in that picture. Just standing there at the line of scrimmage. Mouth. I will never understand why guys have a mouthpiece dangling. What's the point of that? Does it look cool or something? I'd much rather keep my teeth in my mouth than have my mouthpiece dangling outside of my unit. And I don't want other people's breath on my mouthpiece. I don't want my mouthpiece hitting the grass and shit. I guess they never really planned to put it in their mouth anyway, but that's another discussion for another day. He just stands there. His demeanor on the field, this is why I call him a smooth operator. It's just even keel. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. You know, he makes a play. Okay, I just made a play. You make a play. He's not getting up and he's not irate. He doesn't pick up a bunch of penalties. And if he does, he's not berating the official like, oh my God, I didn't touch him. He's like Kawhi Leonard with a helmet. Just pretty much the same dude every time. Whether I just dunked on you and served up a facial or had a pick six, same dude. So, damn, he's smooth. He's just a smooth dude. LL Sear, always looking back for the rock. Right? There aren't many times where he doesn't look back. This is why he didn't get penalized very often. From the day he stepped foot on the campus, he was looking back. You're like, bruh, you got to look forward if you want to attain and strive for big things. You can't keep looking in your rearview mirror. He's always looking back. He's got the CNC ability that you crave, that you look for, the ability to click and close, drive on everything, be right there in the hip pocket. You got it. In a normal draft, he's a top 7 guy. He would have been gone within the first 5 to 7 picks. This is not a normal draft. Savvy player and ball skills. He's got savvy play. What do I mean by that? He's the type of guy that plays to his strengths. Case in point, he knows he's got help to the inside. So what does he do? He overplays the outside, forces the receiver to take an inside release towards the safety, rides him to the safety. All right, job's done. He knows he doesn't have safety help. So what does he do? He rides your ass to the sideline and rails you. Now he's got the extra defender of the sidelines helping him defend, and he's running with you, mirroring you, running hip to hip in phase. And you're jammed up against the sidelines with not a lot of operating room. He's just so smart. If he's got help to the inside, I'm going to run you towards my help in the inside. I don't have any help, I'm going to rail your ass towards the sidelines, and I'm going to ride you down the sidelines. Good luck. Just a really savvy player, man. Everything he does is with purpose. Not a lot of wasted motion or wasted steps. Everything is done tactically and with purpose. And he's got ball skills. He can make plays on the football. Had a pick 6 this year. Willing tackler. He'll go up and he'll get in the mix. Not afraid to throw his body around, do what he has to do to get a guy on the ground. Offers you versatility. He can move around. He's the kind of guy that you can use as a star corner. You want to travel, you want to go to the left side, want to go to the right side, want to go in the slot. He can follow that guy, and he's done it in college. Off, press, zone, man, he's good at all of it. Bloodlines. His dad, I talked about him, Patrick Surtain Sr. Damn good corner. Damn good corner in this league. And experience. He's the most experienced corner in this draft class in terms of games played and high-level games played and high-level competition. You won't find that competition in another corner in this draft. You won't find that combination, I should say, in another corner in this draft. Guys played in 41 games, 41 high-level contests. Yeah, there may be a South Alabama ass-whooping or two in there, a Furman. You know, there's a couple of those probably in there. All right, but there are many more games against LSU and Georgia and Florida and South Carolina. There are a lot more of those in there, and Clemson and Ohio State, than there are Furmans in South Alabama states. So he got to play against, listen to this, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and I'm missing one. It's one more dude in practice for the last 3 years. Think about that for a second. Like this dude is ready. He's ready. Dad's been coaching him up and getting him ready for this moment. This guy's ready. The moment he stepped on the campus at Tuscaloosa, he was ready. They put him out there. He was ready. He hasn't looked back. Weaknesses. Look, I'm nitpicking. There's not a lot here. Like I said, is he Caleb Farley in terms of athleticism? Is he Patrick Peterson in terms of athleticism? No. That might be the one thing you could nitpick at, really, is his long distance speed. Is that truly there? I didn't see people getting on top of him in college, but at the pros, it's a different animal. When he's displaced, he has a delayed gather. So what do I mean by that? I watched Kyle Pitts beat him on a slant in the SEC championship game. Pitts stemmed him outside. He reacted to that first movement, and that's not usually how he operates. I told you he's pretty quiet at the line of scrimmage. But Kyle Pitts is a hell of a route runner, and when he moves, you move. Okay? He's not an average dude. You're not dealing with the average cat. You're dealing with a dog. So if he moves, you move. Just like that. So Kyle Pitts stems him outside. He reacts to it. Pitts then breaks him off, crosses him over. And for that second, he got frozen in time. It's like his leg got stuck in the turf, and Pitts was able to gain separation. Then he reacted, and he drove on it and made it a contested catch, but it was a catch nonetheless. In that same game, Trayvon Grimes goes up and puts his nuts on his helmet, catches it, and runs in for a touchdown. What happened on that particular play is he couldn't gather. He overran the football. Trayvon Grimes comes underneath, leaps up, grabs it. He's not in a position to stop, gather, leap up, and make a play. He overran it. He catches it, and he can't transition to go catch him. Touchdown. These are the plays you see happen when he can't gather and react. He's out of position for a second. It's rare, but it happens. I'm nitpicking. I don't really have much for you. He's really good. There's not a lot of holes in his game. You know what? He's a better athlete. He's bigger. He's all those things than Tre'Davious White. But he reminds me of Tre'Davious White coming out of LSU. I remember saying, man, Tre'Davious White, his package isn't delicious. He's not a guy you look at and you fall in love with because he's not 6'1", he's not 205, he's not running a 4.37. You just look at Tre'Davious White and he's 5'11", 5'10", 5'11", and some change. He's 192 and he's running a 4.7 or whatever. And you're like, he's all right. He ain't all that. He's really good. There aren't many holes in his game, but he doesn't get you excited. Well, all he's done is come in the league and kick ass because there's not many holes in his game. I feel the same way about Patrick Surtain II. Yeah, he's bigger. He kind of checks all those boxes, but he's not a blazer. He's not going to wow you with any one attribute, but man, is he good. And he doesn't miss. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Again, not a lot of holes in his game. He's as solid as they come. Solid! Solid as a rock. I got a top 15 grade on him in this year's draft. In any other draft, this will be a top 10, top 5 grade, personally. My comp for him is Jimmy Smith. Same size, same athleticism, same ability. When Jimmy Smith is healthy, man, he keeps it real quiet on his side of the football field. When Jimmy Smith is right in Baltimore, he keeps it real tight, all right, on his side of the field. Not a lot of holes in his game, not a lot of penalties, just really quality football, man. That's Patrick Surtain II. That's PS2. PlayStation. So, whoever gets him is getting a hell of a football player. I will say that. There'll be some battles going on. If he's going up against an upper echelon receiver, there'll be some good battles going on with Patrick Surtain II. So, he's my number one wide receiver in the 2021 NFL draft. So I have a couple of super chats, and I want to take this time to ask any of you out there to subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell if you haven't already done so, and hit the like button. We are currently at 98 likes, meaning we're 1 or 2 off of the century mark. Go ahead and make that happen. There are over 160 of you out there. Somebody, anybody, please hit the like button. Let's get that thing to triple digits. Thank you in advance for that. Got a couple of super chats before we get out of here. One is from my man DCJ. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you. My man DCJ writes, to me, PS2 is a small downgrade of Patrick Peterson. Well, he's actually bigger than Peterson. I'll take that back. I think Peterson's around 6'1" himself. Peterson was a much better athlete than that of Patrick Surtain II. But I guess that's why you say he's a small downgrade, because he's not quite the athlete as Peterson was coming into the league. Peterson was also a dynamic punt returner, which Surtain is not. But PS2, he's just a solid football player, man. Again, not many holes in his game. Not many holes at all. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man JL Smooth writes, what up, Lou? Hope all is good, my man. I just got here. How do you feel about Melifonwu from Syracuse? Would love him in the second round for my Bills. So you just got here, so then you missed him in my top 7. He is currently my number 6 cornerback in this draft. I love Melifonwu out of Syracuse. Ifatu Melifonwu is my biggest riser of this group. Again, wasn't exposed to him prior to this process. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. I knew the name, the surname, because his brother was in the league about 5-6 years ago, Obi Melifonwu. And so I knew they had to be related. That's a very unique last name. However, I didn't know what he was going to be. I said, if he's anything like his brother, he's a hell of an athlete, probably big too. And both of those things checked out and came to pass, because he's 6'2", 205, 210, and runs a 4.48 with 32-inch arms, 41-inch vertical leap, 11.1 broad, and all of that good jazz. He's a dynamic player. I love him. Love him. And think he's going to be a really good football player for some team if he's used in the right capacity and continues to develop. So I think he's a really good football player as well. And he will not be around for your Bills in the second round. You're going to have to make a move. Either you take him at 30, or you're going to have to make a move. You can't say, hope he's going to be around for my Bills in the second round when you're drafting like 59th or 60th in the second round. You're going to have to take him at 30 if you want him, theoretically speaking. So how bad do you guys want him? That's the real question. Let's see. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'll take 10 minutes worth of comments in the chat, and then we'll get out of here. So if you're out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive. Grab a couple of these real quick, get out of here. My man Ree writes, Asante Samuel Jr. is a great prospect. I think he may be a tad too aggressive, though. He kind of just flies around like a madman. He should play with more discipline. That's kind of his thing right now, is he just plays like his hair's on fire. But he doesn't get beat a ton, even though he does that. But, with his size, it could lead to injuries and at the next level. Okay, it's one thing to fly around like a madman in the ACC when the best receivers you're probably going to see in the entire conference are the wide receivers at North Carolina. It's another thing to do that against NFL talent. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. Reese says, we had a lot of luck with the son of a great DB last year. Imagine Antoine Winfield Jr. and Asante Samuel Jr. on the same team. As I've always said, never, ever trust a man with two first names. Asante Samuel has two first names. I don't trust him at all whatsoever. But we will see. Reese says, we're getting old, Lou. Antoine Winfield, Asante Samuel, and Joe Horn will have sons in the league. Frank Gore's son is in college football. Damn. Yeah, it happens fast, man. Time flies. It flies when you're having fun. So, that is a reminder though that we are getting up there in age. I don't like to admit it sometimes, but shit, these years are passing by. I sometimes forget how old I am. Sometimes that's how bad it's getting. Anyway, Reese says Elijah Molden is Brent Grimes. He's not Brent Grimes for the simple fact that he's not an outside corner. Grimes could play outside, even though he was diminutive. First of all, Brent Grimes could jump out of the damn gym. That's not who Elijah Molden is. Brent Grimes probably could I would say he could dunk and dunk pretty easily. His hops were ridiculous. Some of the best hops I've ever seen of a small guy in the league. And he's got that kind of toughness though of a Brent Grimes. But Grimes was a boundary corner, and Molden is more of an inside guy. Reese says Greg Newsome feels like a Raven to me. I could see that. I could definitely see that for sure. But they don't need a corner. I think they are targeting a wide receiver early and probably an edge rusher, if I had to guess. Maybe a tackle too, but they don't need a corner right now. But I could see why you would feel that way. Reese says, what do you think of the numbers, NFL being more lenient with jersey numbers? I think it will take a couple of years getting used to. It will. I mean, I'm an old man, get off my lawn type of person. So I don't like change. This doesn't really bother me any. I don't really care. But I saw Patrick Peterson on a show the other day debut his number. He's going back to his college number of 7 in Minnesota. And it looked weird. So it'll take some getting used to, but it's not something that like Tom Brady made a big deal. Oh, it's gonna affect the play. Like, no, it's not. Tom, you take your ass somewhere and sit down. Like, it's not gonna change the way the game is played. It's just simply jersey numbers. It's just gonna be weird to look at, to see a receiver wearing the number 1, running around making plays. Or to see a running back wearing the number 13. That's going to be weird. But as long as offensive linemen, which they can't, or a stud defensive lineman isn't running around with a single digit, that's when it gets weird. Even though it looks pretty cool in college, that's when shit gets weird, which we're not going to have. They're not, relaxing the jersey numbers on, D and offensive linemen. So, yeah, it'll take a little while to get used to. Nothing else. Reese says, anything on the slate for NFL Christmas Eve tomorrow? I've been busy all week. I'm going to continue to be busy. I got a Washington show tomorrow night. There'll probably be some ancillary content continuing to come out. And I may do a quick promo infomercial for my draft party. But nothing major. Nothing major. Reese says, Jamar Chase has 2 first names, and you love him. I love him, but I don't trust him. It's 2 different things. 2 different things. I love him. I don't trust him. And DCJ says, what cornerback, if available, would you grab in the middle rounds? Are you concerned with the Syracuse safety lack of speed or health concerns you more if available for Washington football team? I actually like Andre Cisco a ton. I would love to see Washington get their hands on him. He can run. And he's very instinctive. Again, he's greedy, so he does give up some things from time to time, but he makes his fair share of plays. So I would love to get my hands on Andre Cisco from Syracuse. Obviously, you got to check out, make sure he's healthy, but it's an ACL. Guys get ACLs all the time and bounce back. So if you could, get an item on sale because of a small defect that not a lot of people are going to be able to notice, sign me up. I'm the guy that I want this shirt because on the inside of the shirt there's a small stitching defect that no one on the outside can see, but the manufacturers know, and so they knock the price down by 25%. Give me that shirt. Give me that shirt. I want the B grade Jordans. If any of you know what that is, I want the B or the C grade Jordans. You don't know what the hell is the difference between them, the A grades and the C grades. Let me get that and let me spend a fraction of the price. That's essentially what I'm hoping to do with Walker Little, Andre Cisco, and some of those guys in this draft. But you asked specifically about a mid-round corner. I would tell you I threw out Shaun Wade as a guy that I think is a hell of a nickel in the NFL. He'd make a great nickel corner. That's the kind of guy you're looking to try to get value on in the mid-rounds. A guy like Shaun Wade, who I think has a ton of talent, ton of potential, but I think he was misplaced this year. He tried to play out wide and got his ass toasted. He's an inside guy. Stick him back inside and let him do his thing. Maybe even go back to safety. So there are some other guys that may be around that I think could be intriguing. You've got Mukwamu from South Carolina, Israel Mukwamu, big corner, man. A little too stiff for me, but man, you can't teach 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", that length. He's got tremendous ball skills. He's interesting because I think most people look at him and say he's got to make a transition to safety. I don't know. We'll see. If you put him in the right system, he smells, he feels, he tastes like a Seattle Seahawk. A guy that they stick in a cover three. And they've kind of gone away from cover three in Seattle, so I shouldn't even say that. But anybody that plays a cover three defense, primarily cover three, he's the perfect guy. If you're just looking for a long guy that can keep eyes on the quarterback, keep everything in front of you, and make plays on the football, Israel Mukwamu might be your guy. You got St. Juste from Minnesota. He's another interesting corner, really talented. I think under the radar in this draft. A lot of people are talking about him. He's got a unique skill set. He's a long corner, very active, has some ball skills. He's interesting too. So there'll be some guys, like I said, deep draft class at the cornerback position. It's all in what you're looking for. You're looking for a smaller guy, a nickel, the guy from Kentucky, Kelvin Joseph could be interesting for you, if you're looking for a smaller corner. I thought he had some really good tape against Alabama. You watch him have a pick against Alabama. They got their asses run in that game, but he made some plays in that game, including a pick of Mac Jones one-on-one down the field. And I thought he covered, at times, Devontae Smith like a glove down the field, hip to hip, rate and phase, turn, locate ball, picked him off. I thought he did some really good things. So he's got some upside on him. He's another guy that you can take a look in the mid-rounds and probably be able to snag. But again, some of these corners, we may be talking about mid-rounds, and some of these teams may be high on them, and they go. Tyson Campbell is another guy. I'm not as big a Tyson Campbell fan out of Georgia, but again, can't teach what that kind of guy brings to the table. At 6'1", 205 pounds or so, running a 4.3, whatever, 4.4, whatever. I think he's like a 4.41 guy. He's got some talent, got all the measurables you're looking for. So this is a deep draft class of corners. Again, I talked about Paulson Adebo a number of times. He's another guy. He won't be around in the mid rounds, more likely than not. But it's a lot of corners in this draft, man. It's a deep draft of corners for sure. So. Reese says, if Melifonwu can be as lucky as Nomney, he'll be happy. Man is married to Kerry Washington. And he's an actor, too. So, Nomney got his shit straight, for sure. Donovan Gregory says, Eric Flowers back. Is that Washington buying time for getting an offensive lineman. So mid to late round Reds instead. I don't know if they are still interested in drafting a guy or not. It just won't be at 19. That's all that says to me, is that it takes that off the table early in this draft. Doesn't mean that they don't feel like in the 5th round that this guy is the best, available talent at the time, and they're like, we can't pass this up in the 5th round, and they take a guard or an interior offensive lineman. It just means you're not going to spend 19 or 51 or even 74 or 82 for that matter on a guard. Now, you still may draft a tackle at any one of those 4 picks, but guard is off the table, and that's the way I like it. So, Alan West says, love the moves the front office has been making while taking care of the cap. You got to love it. Ron's plan. And you said mid to late rounds instead of early. Exactly. It'd be mid to late rounds instead of early rounds. Precisely. So that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. We've been here damn near 3 hours, knocked the cornerback position out of the way. I hope to bring some more breakdowns before the draft, safeties, maybe offensive line. I doubt I get to the offensive line, but I will have them done before the draft. So, once they get picked, we'll be able to talk about them. But I wanted to try to get to them before the draft took place. I don't think that's going to happen, but I won't count myself out. I set the bar high. If I reach it, great. If I don't, I'm not going to be upset because I'm setting it so high. But that's the goal over the next 48 hours prior to the draft. So hopefully we'll have some more content coming out before the draft takes place. But I will be live for Washington Football Report live tomorrow night. But other than that, I am getting out of here. I am your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Remember, get off the bench, get in the game. I'm your man, T, signing off. Until next time, you guys, take care of yourselves and make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video. Until next time, God bless, and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.